Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hard stream. Actually, it's going to be our first ASUS PCDIY live stream for 2026. For those of you guys that are joining us, Happy New Year's. Great to be able to be back. Of course, we've recently wrapped up pretty much one of the biggest shows of the year for us, which is always going to be CES. A lot definitely going on in that respect, but a lot of really cool things to be able to go ahead and touch on. So I'm going to actually log in here, make sure I can see my chat, make sure that everybody's coming up there okay. And see, we actually have joining us for today's actually stream. So looks like we've got oh fantastic to be able to see the one, the only, the Canadian Grandmaster himself, Snef. Always one of my favorite builders in the game to be able to see joining us here on the stream. So fantastic for joining us. We've got Kandichi joining us as well. We've got Leonardo joining us, man. Thanks for shouting out, I think, what we do really, really well, which is going to be the features, functions, designs that we have on the ROG side of the fence. Some really, really cool stuff, right? So we've also got Julian joining us as well, man. Fantastic. Thank you. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully you're having a good Friday. We've got a lot of cool stuff. Hey, we've got Top 3 Entertainment also joining us. Nice to be able to actually see you, man, at CES. Thanks for stopping by. We've also got Bob Edgar, man. Love the picture of the pup. Always, you're always going to get a plus for me if you got a picture of your dog in there. So, overall, happy for you guys joining us here on the stream. We've got actually a lot to talk about for this stream. When we talk about CS, there's always a huge number of announcements, and I think that this might be definitely one of the biggest in terms of the number of products that we have. So we have everything from brand new monitors that we have, both ProArt monitors, we've got gaming-centric monitors, we have an entire new lineup of motherboards, which of course you guys, if you haven't checked out already, our first look preview that we released in alignment with CES, we have 9 new motherboards that we touched on, and we're going to be touching on those as well. But coming out of CES, we've got other really cool, exciting things like the ROG Cronox, which for me is a really exciting update to our chassis lineup. We've got the new EURUX-based fans, which I think are the absolute best aRGB fans that are going to be out on the market. We've got new networking solutions to be able to kind of highlight some new ID designs, right? New peripherals, right? There's just a really, really big base of products to be able to go ahead and touch on. So let's say get ready to go ahead and kick things off. Fantastic. Always nice to be able to see Erica joining us here on the stream, and thanks for letting us know that the audio is coming through as well. Hey, Mike, man, happy to have you here joining us on the stream. Thank you so much. So where do you think we guys should start? So there's a lot of products that we have in terms of the overall CS kind of recap that we have. I know monitors are always kind of the most interesting, but I think for me, I'm going to go ahead and start off, I think, with the chassis. I'm going to start off with the Cronox, and I'm going to start off with the EURUX fans. I think this is an absolutely awesome set of hardware that we're going to be releasing here in Q1 for PCDIY enthusiasts. And then from there, let me know in the vote, right? Where do we want to go? Do we want to go to displays? Do we want to go networking? We've only got one new graphics card to be able to touch on, which is going to be the brand new ProArt 5090, but we'll definitely jump into, the entire gamut. So let's ready to go ahead. And definitely, Randy, we're going to touch on the UCDM Gen 3. I know that you might have maybe seen some videos or some interviews. We definitely talked that model up. I think it's a really cool, exciting option. And I've got, hopefully for most of the products, a fairly tentative schedule release. So we will be, when and where possible, highlighting pricing and availability for the corresponding models. Keep in mind, though, that there's always a little bit of variability in that regard. But as we keep coming through 2026 with more PCDIY live streams, generally here on Fridays, we'll make sure to keep you up to date. And as always, if you guys are not part of our PCDIY community, make sure to join our PCDIY Heartbeat community. It's a great space to be able to find real-time information when it comes to new product announcements, features, functions, updates, and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Yeah, we're gonna go first, I think, into the chassis side. So let me go ahead and bring up my I got to go here in my list of all the different items. So yeah, we're going to go into chassis, and it's going to be the brand new ROG Cronox. So this is a really exciting update that we have, I think, in terms of this chassis update. So this is actually the first pretty much a panoramic glass option that we've offered in terms of ROG. So we already had, of course, a Pano edition here with something like the A31, which is a great kind of entry-level option. And then we had, of course, the Tough Gaming GT502, as well as the Horizon update. Really love those models. This model is really interesting, though, because it actually kind of takes a combination from a design from our AP series chassis, which actually had a curved tempered glass design, and now brings that into the ROG ecosystem. So let's go ahead and take a look here at the Cronox, and we're going to see what it's going to be bringing to the table. So go ahead and bring it up in here, and we've got, yeah. There we go. So this is going to be the ROG Cronox. It will be definitely a large chassis in terms of its overall volume. Not super, super large, so I wouldn't call it like an XL type chassis, but definitely I'd say larger than a standard kind of mid-range based chassis design. But then again, it's designed to complement the wide range of components that you would have, especially I think within a high-end enthusiast type build. So think about larger base graphics cards. It is also going to be readily supporting all types of motherboards. So you're going to have BTF support, you'll have standard ATX support, and you'll also have eATX based support. So if you want to be able to utilize motherboards like our Glacial series or Extreme series, they'll also find a place in there in terms of the overall dimensional footprint in terms of support. Now, when we take a look at the inside of the chassis, you know, this unit has really stacked in terms of being able to offer a huge level of flexibility when it comes to the fan configuration deployment. So it can support up to 14 120 millimeter base fans, only 120 millimeter base fans within this unit. One of the really cool elements will be, and I don't think I have footage of it right now to be able to show you, but you'll be able to go online and be able to check this out. I might be able to see if I've got the product page open here in a second, but there's actually an internal hinge mechanism that we have right here that you can actually rotate the angle essentially for those inset base fans. So if you want to resolve a little bit of that kind of negative space, or you want to tend to kind of bring in more focused airflow, that's a really cool design where essentially there's going to be just two thumb screws, one at the top and one at the bottom. You can pretty much remove those and then angle that in, and then you would be able to go ahead and focus in the airflow. SNEF is actually going, will the screen be included? Yes. So we showed off at CES actually two different types of displays. There was an infinity mirror that we had, and then there was also an LCD and a high resolution LCD. So as of right now, the actual plan is that it doesn't matter whether it would be for the white model or if it would be the black model, you would actually have a high resolution. So it's actually, I believe, from 1920 by 440, I think, approximately. It's an HD resolution. It's actually quite bright, 400 nits. And for us, we don't really call it just a screen. It's actually a whole stat panel. So it's really cool. We have an entire, what we call Cyber Review portal that allows you to customize this. It doesn't require any internal headers. It'll actually just work through a loopback cable that connects to the system in terms of USB, but you'll actually be able to have over 6 different stats that are overlaid. So if you want to be able to have things like the frequency, temperature, things along those lines, you can do that. If you want to just be for a really nice, cool, customized wallpaper, you can have that as well. And there's even actually elements that I think a lot of enthusiasts will appreciate, where we've actually even integrated things like the ROG fonts, which actually are exclusive, right, or custom designed fonts that we have, but you can actually go in and you can type different things out and you can customize that. And we have even corresponding specialized wallpapers that are specific to that dimension and resolution, again, that are color matched. So you'll have white themed wallpapers, you'll have black themed wallpapers, and this stat panel, you'll be able to really kind of go to town in terms of being able to customize it. It even has an ambient mode, which is pretty cool. So like even when you reboot, you could have just like a timing clock there that would be persistent before you then get into the OS, and then you would have all kind of your real-time stats that would be displayed. The stat panel also actually is on an angle, so you can actually kind of swing it out. So if you want to adjust the field of view a little bit more, depending on how you position the chassis, you could do that. And you could actually remove it. You could remove the stat panel entirely, and maybe you want to have it on your desk as opposed to inside the chassis. You could actually do it that way as well. So that's part of the reason why we also wanted to go with an external connection that is powered by the motherboard on a rear USB port, as opposed to actually being run from like an internal header. So it provides actually quite a bit of flexibility in that regard. Now, let me go ahead and see if I can bring up actually the page here for the Cronox. In terms of connectivity, this unit has kind of really been designed to be able to match kind of the connectivity experience that we have for a lot of our higher end base motherboards. Although now we have definitely a range of motherboards on the, I'd say the mid-range side, that are going to actually be offering quite a bit of comprehensive connectivity that would still be able to work for this chassis. So yeah, I've got the page up here and you can actually see, so here's the chassis. In terms of the actual connectivity, I don't know if we'll have the update yet. We don't even have the updated images in here because they haven't finalized, but this unit will actually have 6 USB ports. They're actually all positioned here at the top of the chassis. So there'll be 4 type A ports, and then there's going to be 2 USB-C ports. We've even painstakingly actually colored matched even the ports. So like on the white model, all the ports are even white, which is really nice. And those ports are actually rated for 20 gigabits and 60 watt power delivery. And while you might not see it too much in this picture, the lighting is actually really nicely done here. So you actually have a lighting design that's actually at the very top of this chassis. You literally don't see it over here. Let me see if over here, if we have some of the gallery images already up. Yeah, you can actually see it a little bit more in this picture right here, but you notice this like little inset design That's an actual LED strip that's in there. Of course, it's RGB. It can be synchronized and controlled, but you've got one lighting zone, you've got another lighting zone, and then you have another lighting zone, and then you have another lighting zone, and those two are at the feet. So it's just subtle, but it just helps to add a little bit more illumination, a little bit more of a distinct design that I think looks really cool. And then also critically, again, I believe we're the only manufacturer in the industry right now that's actually doing tempered curved glass. So the quality and the durability of the glass is outstanding in that regard and really class leading. And I really love how that curvature is just really nice and tight and clean. It allows for like a really premium aesthetic that you have within this overall chassis design. So really excited about that. Hey, Comer, no worries. We are going to be getting to monitors. We just kicked off the stream. So right now we're going to be focusing. I'm going to talk about first the chassis, and then we're going to talk about our fans. I think then I've asked the community to find out where they want to go as far as what's going to be probably the most talked about product. I think because I've got more monitors than anything else, it'll probably be my second thing. So rest assured, we'll definitely be talking about monitors in a little bit. Okay. So interesting. Hey, PGPCs is giving you vibes from another chassis. That's interesting. I mean, you know, for sure, we've been doing it a little bit longer than I'd say Haven's been doing it now as far as a chassis vendor. But I definitely think that there's things that we don't do, that we're doing that they just don't do. So, you know, the class leading, I think, connectivity, I think even the RGB lighting based design, the curved tempered glass, these are all things that are entirely different that you don't see actually from other companies. So I think this really complements again, a new dynamic in terms of giving you a different look and feel. And you can see down here at the bottom that kind of swing out design that we talked about for the LCD display, which I think actually looks pretty cool. And again, also right here where we talked about that hinge design, it's actually a patented hinge design so that you can actually go ahead and refocus or angle essentially those fans or help to resolve some negative space that you have within the Cronox. So this is going to be available in white. It will be available in black. So we will have it in pretty much your two color themed options. Of course, white internals and white external, and then black internal and black external, right? So pretty much be up to you to go ahead and pick your choice. And then, you know, I don't really need to talk about that it'll fit any size graphics cards. We make pretty much some of the biggest cards on the market. So regardless of whether you go with like a tough gaming 5090 or whether you go with a competitor's card and a competitor's motherboard, right? Because it's just a great chassis altogether. You're pretty much going to be able to fit any type of hardware configuration in here. So you're going to be good to go. But the only restriction is that we're not designing this to be able to support, let's say, 420 millimeter base radiators. This is still really kind of, I think, best suited towards 360. And then even in water cooling, there's always more complex kind of considerations you have to consider. But definitely, you could definitely do water cooling within this, although you can see here in kind of our demo system, this is still kind of what I would say would be like a realistic real world approach to what a high-end builder would be looking for, right, without custom water cooling. That has our Ryu 4 cooler. That's the ROG Astral, and I can't see the board that's in there, but you know, some ROG ATX based board. So that overall gives you, I think, one of the most compelling updates that I'm really excited about. So Jerry actually overgoes here. The pictures don't do it justice. The colors on the fans look amazing in person. 100% agree. I think like actually when you talk about the fans, and we're going to go to the fans in a little bit, the fans here, I think actually are going to be one of the biggest things. And they're going to just look a little bit more muted. But in reality, I think the Cronox looks absolutely stunning in terms of its actually look and feel. And then I think the same thing, the fans, I think, are actually going to be really compelling and really cool in terms of their design and their feature set, right? So overall, excited to hear some nice feedback from Sneff. Says, I see a lot of potential for water cooling and for custom distros. Definitely agree. And Sue Min, hey man, Sue, fantastic to have you here joining us. I think also Sue was able to see the Cronox. Overall, really excited about seeing this. We don't have a finalized MSRP on it as of yet. But I would say kind of in around the pricing you would probably expect for kind of the Hyperion kind of class type of product, you know, and then from there, from a timing release standpoint, we're going to be probably mid Q1. So we have hope to probably see this release into the channel, I would say sometime in February timeframe. As far as when that exactly might be, or if that might fall a little bit into early March, it just depends. But we hope to be bringing this very shortly in for the Cronox, again, in white and in black. And I think it's going to be a great option for those of you looking for a big, beautiful, a big and bold and beautiful build, right? For especially, like I said, for I think ROG based systems, it would be a great choice. But I think the styling is also minimal enough that, again, if you're going with other componentry as well, it would look great. Okay, so next up, let's go ahead and go to our fans. So this is going to be the EURUX's, or what we call now the GR20s. And we've been waiting on these guys for a long time. And I know that for those of you who've been watching the stream, you guys, I've teased this in the past, and I'm so finally really just happy to finally be able to kind of talk about these and finally note that we are going to be coming to market to these. So there was a lot of work that went into the design and development of these fans, notably because it's a very saturated market, right? The reality is that there's a lot of different options that are out there, and we really wanted to be able to offer something that we felt comprehensively offered features, functions, and performance and value to, I think, the PC DIY community. So what did we do? I think, the first thing that we really kind of looked at was going to be the overall kind of core performance elements, right? Because really for the core performance elements, you don't want to compromise on that, right? And especially being an RG product. So the first thing that's actually going to be quite unique is actually going to be the fan blades themselves. So in most aRGB fans, you'll notice that the actual inner fan blades and then the hub assembly, it's all generally a clear plastic to allow for illumination, kind of like what you see here. And you can have quite good performance from that. Like these TR120 fans offer outstanding performance. They actually significantly offer better airflow and better static pressure than what you would have like on these fans, take for instance. But what has really been distinct is that the best performing fans on the market generally are utilizing LCP, or what's called liquid crystal polymer. And liquid crystal polymer has generally only been seen within essentially fans that are non-aRGB. So we're talking about fans like those from Noctua, from TT, from Fantex, and from other vendors. Hey, DePoets, man, fantastic to have you here. Hopefully you got home safe. Hopefully the baby's doing well, man. Best wishes to you and yours. And again, Happy New Year's, right? So the first thing that you're going to see here is that this fan, what really makes it unique is going to be those blades, right? Being liquid crystal polymer helps us to ensure outstanding performance. If you compare the performance here in terms of what we have from CFM and from static pressure, it's outstanding. That rigidity also helps to give us really good tone, so the noise profile is going to be really great. And you can see that max RPM up to 2600 RPM gives you a huge degree of flexibility. So normally, the reality is that when you generally go with an aRGB fan, you're going to get a lower level of performance than you would go if you got a standard non-aRGB fan. So the goal here was with the EURUX to not compromise. We wanted to give you essentially class-leading performance, but then we also wanted to give you class-leading aesthetics. I think the aesthetic design is really cool, so you'll actually notice that the other part is that we have 3 zones. I don't think there's actually any other company on the market offering 3 distinct zones. And the really cool part about having 3 distinct zones is the continuity and consistency at how you can actually create really cool gradient patterns is unmatched. So you can even see here, like the design setup that I have, this is going to be pretty indicative of what most other options on the market are going to be. And so there's generally a frame that kind of cuts off the ability to continue some type of design motif. But if you actually see here, like in the image, you can actually see how you can actually create like an immediately connected actually design, which is really cool. Hopefully in some of the videos you guys will be able to see from CS, from the tours and showcase, you'll be able to see some of the really cool design elements that we have that allow you to go from fan to fan to fan to fan, to be able to really kind of elevate the look if you want to be able to have these really stylized kind of distinct RGB vibes in the system. But you can go really kind of minimal and refined. So maybe you wanted to keep the 2 outer zones a fixed color, and maybe you only want that inner ring to be actually colored. That's a really cool way. So imagine just going like maybe you go white on the 2 outer rings, and then on the inside it would just be like red, or it would be blue, or it would be green, right? Or again, you could go with 3 independent different colors, and you could matrix it all around. So it allows for quite a bit of distinct flexibility. Let's go ahead and actually take a closer look here at the page. So we talked about, again, outstanding performance. These units are going to be new patented daisy chain magnetic design. So they won't be the same daisy chain design that we had for, let's say, like our Ryujin fans. I know a lot of guys really love those fans, super high quality experience and really great. The locking mechanism, I think, here just makes that installation experience a little bit better and more streamlined, especially if you've got, maybe, 2, 3, 4 fans, right? Like you might be able to have at the bottom of the Cronox and just lock them all together. And we spent a lot of time to really kind of precisely make sure that that experience is really solid. I know maybe some other builders that might have used some other solutions. Sometimes there can be actually inconsistency where you've been able to have dropouts or lost signal connections with these type of fans designs. And so we spent a lot of effort to really be able to make sure that that offered a really be able to great experience. Also, the software management options for like targeted presets. I think right now there's going to be 10 initial ones, but we even have more options that are going to be exposed to really be able to allow a lot of granularity and flexibility. So we will have them in white, we will have them in black. For those of you that are super aesthetically minded, as part of the Q1 release, that's going to be for the single pack and for the triple pack. And then we will also probably in Q2, probably middle to Q2, hope to release the reverse editions. And so if you want the reverse edition fans, those will also be available in white and black. single pack and triple pack. But it doesn't stop there. So we talked about performance, we talked about aesthetics, right? But we also want to talk about the usability experience. And the usability experience, I think, was enhanced also by the 3 zones of lighting. It was enhanced by the daisy chain magnetic design with the locking mechanisms, right? But the thing that I think is also really cool is going to be right here is this 14 channel controller. So actually in the triple pack, we're going to be including this 14 channel controller. To my knowledge, this is the best in class controller that's on the market. So normally for like kind of like this higher end build, you would have to sometimes maybe have 2 or even 3 controllers for like a really complex system. So like remember the Cronox could use 14 fans. Sometimes in some of those builds, you might actually have to use like 2 controllers to be able to support that many fans. With 1 controller, you would be able to do 14 fans. So again, that's a really, really nice simplification for builders to not have to go like, now I have to have another controller, right? 1 controller would be able to matrix across all of those 14 fans, right? So somebody's going, will we come out with 140s? We are considering it right now. There's no plans. And just the reality is it's a low demand. 140 millimeters are not really that popular in the market in terms of broad deployment. Definitely you have chassis that can support them. You have coolers that can support them, but it's quite a bit of a more niche offering. The vast majority builders are using 120. So for us, our focus was making sure that we had an 120. I think if we see really strong adoption and response, and there's really continued feedback to want to be able to see a 140 millimeter option, for sure we can offer that. But yes, level 0 set is this 91 CFM. That's insane, and only 33D. Now, keep in mind, part of the key reason why we're so special in this regard is because this is the only aRGB fan on the market that uses liquid crystal polymer. So that rigidity and that design allows us to have outstanding static pressure and outstanding airflow performance, right? Normally, again, in a traditional fan, you're not going to see liquid crystal polymer. You're only going to see that in ultra premium non-aRGB fans, right? That was first brought to market, take for instance, from like companies like Noctua, or even let's say, even like in our laptop designs, we were the first company to introduce liquid crystal polymer in our actual fans for our laptops, because the profile of the fan is so thin and it's spinning so fast that you need to actually be able to maintain really high rigidity and focused airflow for these small assemblies. So we actually use liquid crystal polymer for that. So we were really excited to be able to bridge that really compelling technology from a performance standpoint into the aRGB design and be able to make that available. So no, availability not right now, but very soon. So we're also going to be looking to release this in Q1. Ideally, you of course can see the combination of how these would complement going inside the new Cronox chassis or any one of our other chassis. So time frame for release we're going to be looking at again is going to probably be about February time frame is when we hope to have them be available. I don't know if the single pack and the triple pack will be simultaneously available, but the goal will again be is that we'll offer essentially 4 different options, right? Essentially one is going to be white and the other one's going to be black. And then it's just going to be a question of whether you want the single pack or you want the triple pack. And again, the triple pack will come included with that 14 channel controller, which again makes it best in class to be able to have an entire system where you can be wired up with just 1 single controller. So I'm really excited again about these EURUXs. And you know, as Top 3 Entertainment said, they look even better in person. It's hard to kind of show you just how nice these fans really look, but I think they look absolutely stunning. And I think the 3-zone lighting design again is one of the coolest designs that I've seen. Again, if you kind of look right here in this image where you can see how you can have these really cool kind of contiguous patterns, you just can't do that within a traditional aRGB fan design where the central illumination is really happening with LEDs that are inside of the ring. So I think visually these look quite a bit different from standard fans that are on the market. But you really don't compromise on anything. You get outstanding performance, you get outstanding aesthetics, you get outstanding flexibility, and you get outstanding usability. So really in all the 4 areas that you would want a great experience for a fan, they're all there. So really excited about being able to see these. Literally was going to ask in white. Yes. So I'm just showing that in here, but 100% we will have these in white. We can use these fans for other builds. Yeah, 100%. So it's important, you know, like, I mean, a lot of what we're going to show is always going to be that it's going to be showed off with an ASUS ecosystem. So here we're showing it with an ROG chassis, but we really design a lot of these products to be able to be available for the DIY user and the great experience. So I'd love for you to pair this with an ASUS motherboard. Maybe you decide to go with a competitor's motherboard, or maybe you decide to go with a competitor's chassis. Okay, that's entirely fine. I still think we're going to have the best aRGB fans on the market. So throw those fans into that chassis. And the cool thing here is the way we approach our integration, right, is that compared to a lot more vendors where there's like a locked ecosystem kind of perspective, right, it's a more open kind of standard in terms of how it gets integrated in. So again, you've got the controller that come included. You just wire that into the normal kind of connectivity that you're going to have for your system, and bam, you're going to be able to good to go. So 100% you can use these in whatever build you want. They're not only limited to working with ROG products. You can use them with whatever other PC DIY componentry you want, right? You're going to be good to go in that respect. Okay, so that is going to be the EURUXs. Overall feedback, what do you guys think there? Like, are you excited about these guys? Do you feel like these are compelling options? I think I'm really excited about these. I think that they are really compelling, like I said, from all of the different standpoints that I evaluate a fan on. I find very, very little lacking in terms of kind of going like, man, I wish it had this, where I go like, man, I think we did an amazing job on the performance, amazing job in the aesthetics, amazing jobs on the usability, and then, also on the functionality of how it all kind of comes together. Is there any new information on the mouse pad with the aRGB XL version? No new gaming surfaces. I mean, the last surfaces that we announced were the XXL versions of the RG sheath, and those are already available, so no big changes in that regard. So, but as always, right, if we have any new product announcements, we will be talking definitely about them here on our weekly stream as we move forward, right? Not sure if, I haven't gotten to the AIO. So we just started the stream. So we just finished talking about the Kronox, and we just finished talking about the fans. So we're going to go into that. So I am going to, though, quickly right now, I do want to actually touch on the AIO, because I think that it's kind of like a three-way combination where like you might be considering a chassis, you might be considering fans, and then you might be considering the AIO. The AIO goes a little bit into also kind of talking about some of the stuff on the motherboard, but we'll talk about motherboard in a little bit. And again, if you want to find out about all the information, or most of it, not all of it, because we haven't done our full comprehensive live stream that we'll do, I don't know if it'll be later this month, but probably later this month for the brand new motherboard refresh. But we already have a first look preview that covers all new 9 of the motherboards that we have for the AM5 lineup. So the 5 X870 boards, and then the 4 B850 base boards. But let's go ahead and go to another item that I want to touch on here, which is going to be our cooler. So we've got a really exciting update. So, again, a lot of you guys sometimes aren't necessarily thinking about ASUS when it comes to coolers. You might be looking at competitors, but I really think, we've consistently shown that we have class-leading designs, and there's actually some stuff that we actually have done before competitors in the marketplace. And I think, this new generation that we have is absolutely, again, going to be setting benchmarks, for what is exciting and interesting within this, segment of the market. So, on this side, I want to be able to go ahead and touch on a new cooler update that we're going to have. So again, we talked about the Kronox, we talked about the EURUX. Now I want to talk quickly about the Strix LC4. So this is going to be our new, and I don't want to say our flagship, but I would say it's like one of our flagship series coolers. So right now, generally on the highest end side, usually we have the Ryujin, and then we have the Ryu. And so the Ryu, of course, just recently launched. That's the one with the curved display, right? It's a 6.7, 2.5K base display. Really cool, gorgeous display. And then we have already the Ryujin 3 Extreme, which was ultra performant, already had pretty much one of the largest standard screens on the market. So for the Strix LC4, we kind of went even crazier, and we leveled up the display to even make it bigger. But I think functionality and the usability wise, we just kind of went to a whole nother level. So I actually have the cooler here. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a visual kind of hands-on. So this is actually the Strix LC4 in white. And you'll see a couple of kind of cool things about it. One of the first things is actually it has a fully integrated fan frame. So just from an installation standpoint, it's really simple, really easy. The fans are already all pre-installed. These are really high performance-based fans. They have an actual ring blade, great outstanding static pressure and airflow performance. That means you don't have to worry about replacing any of these fans. They actually have inlet and outlet connectors on there for supplemental connectivity to fans and to aRGB. There's actually a really cool, actually right here, kind of mirrored aRGB panel that's actually on the radiator as well. But then what really makes it interesting is that massive, look at that absolutely massive, big, beautiful 5-inch. It's a 5-inch vertical IPS display, and resolution, I think this is like 720 by 720. So I think it's the highest on the market, 60 hertz. And it's actually got a really cool magnetic design. So you can actually pull it off if you want to be able to kind of have more accessibility to be able to go ahead and install it. But where the really cool part is, is if you notice, there's no cables that are attached to this. Normally, for an AIO, you actually can have quite a bit of cables. You can have a fan cable, you can have an aRGB cable, you can have a pump cable, you can have a display cable. There's a lot of cables that you can sometimes have. you notice there's not one cable that is coming out of this pump. So how do we manage all the connections? And this is where we innovate. This is where ASUS is really the leader in the industry. I'm always trying to make something that's compelling, exciting, and innovative. And so we have actually this little modular adapter. This little modular adapter will come inside the box. And there actually will be another adapter inside the box for legacy-based cooler, legacy-based compatibility. So if you got an older motherboard or you got a competitor's motherboard and you still want this really high-performance, great-looking cooler, you want this big display, you can still totally go the classic route if you want to think about that, right? Let me see if I have my secondary camera. In my secondary camera, I might be able to show you this. Actually, I do have it connected, so I can show you. So give me a second here, and let me see if I can show you this. Give me 1 second here. I mean, got a little bit of a smaller keyboard, make it a little bit more room for me. There we go. Okay, and let me see if I can do it this way. So I'll see if I can show you guys here. You see here, I want to make sure I can focus in. Okay, see if we can do that. All right, hopefully you guys can see there. I haven't white balanced it, so it's going to be maybe a little bit color casted, but if you take a look right there, you can actually see right there, there's that little slot, right? So you can actually take that little guy right there. So this will be the essentially the corresponding adapter, and we just slot that little adapter in there. And when we slot that adapter in there, those corresponding set of pins, right, will actually make contact with another set of pins. And you can notice on this cooler how we have the actual thermal compound, but we have an ROG on there. I think that looks really, really slick and really cool, right? So you'll see here, so now what we want to do is we want to go right here, and I'm going to show you the motherboard. So I'm going to show you this motherboard here. Give me 1 second. Let me adjust this guys a little bit. Apologies for doing this on the fly. And let me see if I can kind of fit this in the frame there. Yeah, there we go. So you can actually see the big, beautiful Glacial board right there. It's actually even wider than this. Again, I haven't done a color correction on the camera, so apologies on that side. But you'll notice those little set of pins, right? So when you have those set of pins, you would pretty much take your cooler, right? And the cooler would install directly on that. And I'll show you a video of how this kind of comes together. But once you've done that, all of the control signaling and the data signaling is going to be handled. So those pins will carry over the power, the monitoring, the pump, the aRGB, everything. There's not actually one cable that you have to connect to the system. It's super, super simple. All you're going to do is put the bracket. Once you put the bracket, you're going to screw in the bracket, and then you would pretty much just put on your cooler head, and bam, you've now installed your big, beautiful cooler. And super simple. You didn't have one cable that you had to attach. So when you talk about just how quote unquote clean and how minimal that can be, really there's not going to be anybody in the industry that's going to be able to offer you a better experience than ASUS and ROG when it comes to this. So the beauty of being able to pair your kind of your ROG cooler with your ROG motherboard, right, is going to be awesome in that regard. So let me go ahead and show you actually a little bit of a video here that I have for this. So this will be really kind of one of the key features that we're going to have on the, oh my gosh, that motherboard is so heavy. That's going to be one of the key features that is going to be on the new AMD motherboard refresh on the AM5 lineup. So the Glacial, the Dark Hero, the X870E, and the X870A, all four of those models will all have that new AIO quick connector design. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you guys a little bit of a video here, and you can kind of see how this all comes together. So give me 1 second. I think I've got a video of it here that I can show you guys. Yeah, here we go. Okay, go ahead and take a look at it. So you can see just how seamlessly this kind of comes together. You pretty much just have your bracket, you're just going to screw in your bracket, and then you mount your cooler, and then it's all handled for you, right? And yes, Sniff, that was the Glacial. I'll touch on it a little bit more. There's some really cool stuff that's on the Glacial. But, I mean, come on, guys. Don't tell me that nobody has not been wanting to have this type of design, right? I mean, you know, you finally have a design implementation that just allows for super streamlined, super easy way to be able to go ahead and mount your AI board and not have one cable connected. And then, of course, you look at that awesome pairing, right? Which is totally just insane, where you've got the big, beautiful display on the Glacial, and then you've also got a monster 5-inch display that's also on the motherboard, right? But overall, again, just that simple. You're just going to mount the bracket, line them up, screw them in, and then you're good to go. So super simple, super easy, and you're going to be all set. And I really love, again, this feature is going to be on everything from even the mid-range, right? So again, the XA70-A, that's kind of like our sweet spot motherboard in terms of the lineup on the Dash A. X870, then we have the Dash E, when we have the Dark Hero, and then we have the Glacial. And so that will be kind of a key hallmark here for the new coolers. So again, if we take a look at the cooler, let me go ahead and bring that up for you guys. Product page is not fully up for this yet, but there's already a little bit of a semi-product page. So we have, again, the Strix LC4, a very small picture there. So thankfully I was able to kind of show it to you off a little bit more in person. Again, we will have this in white, we'll have it in black. Time frame that we're looking to launch this also going to be here in Q1. So hopefully around that February time frame, we'll look to probably have these available. Again, only right now in 360 millimeter, no plans right now for like a 240 millimeter solution. So 360 millimeter base design. They're both going to have that, all the same core functionality. So you're going to have that 5-inch display, 720 by 720, 60 hertz, those high pressure, static pressure, high airflow based fans, the integrated, of course, fan bracket frame with the aRGB lighting design, right? The inlet and the outlet, the Q connector support, all of that stuff is going to be baked in there. So you're all going to be good to go. So very excited about, and of course, you'll also notice there those reduced cable lengths, right? To be able to even have that more clean and kind of streamlined based look, right? So overall, really, really cool setup that I think is really compelling. So that's going to be, again, we've got new chassis, new cooler, new AIOs all ready to kind of go throw down. So I think really, really cool on that side. So let's see here. X870E for the win. Yeah, I agree. I think that board is going to be a fantastic option in terms of our lineup, the X870-E. I think always from like a value standpoint, that board is one of my favorites, where without going into the Dark Hero class in terms of the price point, you get amazing connection, feature set, functionality, and performance out of that board. I'm always a big fan of it. We'll quickly touch on the motherboards. Again, I have the first preview, but again, yeah, here, this is going to be the Dash E. I think it's a great looking board. Some really cool updates for this generation, and you also get the quick connector support on there, right? So yeah, overall, quick connect is godsend, right? Man, yeah, thanks for being Team Crosshair and Team ROG. Fantastic. If you have a question, Thomas, feel free to go ahead and drop it in the chat, and I'll do my best to go ahead and get to it when I can. Okay. So let me just see here. Just inside the display with smaller display. I'm not sure what you mean by that. So yeah, love that board. Yeah, I would agree right there. Oh, is there smaller display available? Oh, I think what you're saying, right, is that essentially because we have that removable essentially display, right? Could we come out with one that would have like a smaller display? Right now there's no, but there is a plan to actually release a Strix LC4 without an LCD. So inherently it would, I think it has like a fixed display design on it. So it won't have an LCD, and that'll carry a lower price point. So if you don't want to kind of maybe have to go for something that big, then I would recommend going with that. Another option, if you just want a smaller display, is I would actually say, take a look at the ROG Gen 3, which already was the biggest display in the industry before. You know, that was already a 3.5-inch display, really, really nice. We also just recently launched, and they should be hitting very shortly, but I love the look of this one. I think I actually have a video of it here. It's going to be the new Tough Gaming LC3 cooler. I think the Tough Gaming LC3 is a great looking option. Yeah, I think I have it in this one right here. So you can see right here, I love kind of the geometric design of this cooler head. I think it looks really cool, really kind of a compact design. I think this is just under about 3 inches, if I remember. It's like 2.96 or something like that. But I really like the way that this cooler head looks. So we've got quite a number of different options. So again, just take a look at the lineup, and there's going to be a model that works well for you. And you can still see, you can still make it look super clean. Again, even in my build, this is the Prime Series cooler. This one actually does not have a display. The black version does, the white version doesn't. It just actually has a swappable insert, so you can actually change the kind of the look and feel on it. Okay. All right. So that takes care of that. So yeah, we went over the Cronox, we went over the fans, and we went over the new coolers. Okay, so I'm going to do one last component update. I'm just going to quickly talk about the graphics card because we only have one new graphics card, and then we're going to get into monitors. I know a lot of you guys want to know about the monitors, so we're going to definitely touch on the monitors. All right, so let me go ahead and bring this up. So we had, of course, a lot of people for quite some time, right? We're asking us like if we're ever going to come out with a ProArt 5090, right? And the main reason why we didn't do it initially is because it was a huge undertaking. If you're not aware, when we designed and developed the ProArt cards, there's a design mandate that we wanted to keep, which was keeping the cards always at a 2.5 slot based design. The main reason why we want to be able to have a 2.5 slot design is that because we intend to have ProArt cards, some people think it's about SFF, and that's a byproduct benefit. It's nice to be able to kind of give you compatibility for a small form factor testing, but that's not our primary focus because to be honest, we already had Prime and Dual Series, which are also 2.5 slot, which could work great for that community. So for us, really, ProArt's intent is because we're designing it for creators, for people that are doing prosumer and professional workflow. Photography, animation, 3D modeling, right? LLM development, right? More prosumer professional kind of workflows. And in that regard, you can use actually dual GPUs. So take, for instance, like you're doing editing in DaVinci Resolve, you can actually use 2 GPUs. Where on a gaming side, you can't use 2 GPUs. So that's why we prioritize the thermal solution to even be larger for, let's say, tough gaming ROG Astral, because they're purpose built for kind of gaming where you can only use one graphics card. But in the creation community or the prosumer community, professional community, you can actually use multiple cards. So we want to keep 2.5 slot. So we actually had to entirely redesign the entire thermal solution for the 5090. So this was a big undertaking because that also required us to redesign the PCB. And that required a lot of work. So right now, technically, the tough gaming PCB is different. The ROG Astral PCB is different. And now we have the ProArt PCB is different. And then we even have differences within the thermal solution for all of those. So that's actually quite a bit of an undertaking. To be frank, you generally will not see that from most manufacturers because the amount of R&D work that it takes there, it can be challenging to justify that type of design work in terms of kind of designing and developing so many different variations of one type of product, right? But for us, you know, that's what we pride ourselves on. So really excited to be able to offer that. So let me go ahead and bring up the ProArt 5090 here. I should have it over here somewhere. ProArt 5090. Where's my creator? I thought I had a pre-existing link for it, but that's okay. I will just go ahead and bring it up manually. So ProArt 5090 right here. And I will bring this up here. Here we go. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at it. And this is going to be the ProArt. So the cool things that you're going to have here is that, one, we maintain a 2.5 slot design. It has that really classic ProArt based styling. So this is going to, of course, be that black and gold design aesthetic. Just a little bit of wood grain finishing on there. This actually card will be featuring liquid metal in terms of the actual thermal interface compound material. So that's actually an improvement compared to what we would normally offer, which was already better than the industry standard, which is on all of our other GPUs, we're generally going to be using a phase change thermal pad for the thermal compound. But for this model, we decided to go with liquid metal for even, of course, a higher level of thermal dissipation performance. So you can actually take a look right here at that ProArt card. It looks absolutely fantastic with that gold and black styling. You can, of course, see the classic ProArt heatsink assembly with that black heatsink design. I think we're the only company that's doing it with the black heatsink. It looks fantastic. Of course, I'm personally biased because I helped to recommend that design for the team. And then you can also see that cool dual venting design. The fans here are absolutely massive. So this is dual 115 millimeter fans on this. So they're super large. They have a ring barrier to help to focus static pressure and airflow performance. Again, you also have that liquid metal for the thermal interface compound, the dual vented backplate, a custom specialized vapor chamber design, which really, along with the ultra dense and massive heatsink assembly with that dual venting design, is what allows us to be able to have such great thermal performance while maintaining that 2.5 slot design. I think also still because of the way we have a more traditional fan-based implementation compared to designs like the FE solution, which sometimes are a little bit more varied in terms of their performance based on specific types of kind of airflow configurations. This is going to be more favorable to more varied types of configurations. We'll also be able to maximize better thermal dissipation performance, I think, for more of the componentry that's actually on the card, where you're not just thinking about just, let's say, the GPU performance, but you're thinking about other component performance. That is going to be always a little bit more constrained, a little bit more challenging when you go to a more compact PCB because you have less space for thermal dissipation and thermal displacement, where if you can actually take a look at the PCB design, like on an Astral, we can really isolate more of the componentry to separate zones, which helps to reduce things like heat pooling and other items like that. But overall, I think it's a stunning card in terms of the overall design aesthetic. Again, that black and that gold, those beautiful large 115mm base fans, the wood grain finishing at the top there, which it's just subtle, but it just adds a nice, a little bit of a distinctive kind of design silhouette. You can see, of course, that really large vented backplace design. This one has also still the dual V BIOS design, so you have the Q mode and the P mode. Of course, you can entirely do that all inside software. But I think a great addition. And then, of course, those that want that native USB-C connectivity, which is a little bit more so, I think, for just certain creators in certain spaces, for VR-based users, it might be nice as far as that. But to be honest, I'd love your guys' feedback. Would you rather have a traditional port, or would you rather have the USB-C port? Because sometimes people don't realize it, but you can just get a DP cable to DP to USB-C as long as your device supports a USB-C DP signal. You don't have to have a native output to a native output. You can actually just adapt the output from the DP port to USB-C, assuming your device supports that. All right, so let me go ahead and see if there's any questions right there on that guy. So let me see right here. It's really hard to believe in that day. It's really hard to believe that the Glacial has more power stages than an X870E Extreme. I thought the Extreme would be the best motherboard. And so actually, we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the motherboard. But the Extreme, right, and the Glacial, kind of think about them like brothers, right? You know, we're essentially using the vast majority of the design benefit of what we already had on the Extreme. So we consider the Extreme our true flagship based motherboard. But because this came out after the Extreme, we're able to kind of push it even a little bit further, right, and just go to that. That's also because of the repositioning of the Glacial. In the past, the Glacial was a limited edition product that was, while it could be used for any builder, it also had much more of a kind of a water cooling type of focus, right? For custom water cooling. For this generation, we've removed that kind of that focus, although all high-end ROG boards always kind of see people integrating them for liquid cooling or for water cooling. I'm sure somebody like Snef will affirm to that point. But we've removed things like integrated water blocks or water block headers or stuff like that because we just saw less utilization, and we wanted to kind of make the board more broadly focused at the larger type of audience, which was we wanted to give a white high-end based option, right? We've had a lot of users ask for that. So that's where we kind of take this Glacial as being kind of like a white Extreme, but we also use the opportunity to take the specifications and push them even further. So there is going to be spec that is going to be present that's on the Glacial that isn't present on the Extreme, but that doesn't mean that the Extreme is still not outstanding. Even some supposed competitors that have recently released models, there's stuff on the Extreme that isn't on those other models, like the fact that you have the dual V BIOS design, the fact that you have a 3D vapor chamber based design for the M.2 heatsink, right? The fact that you have the DIMM.2 removable add-in card, right? These are all things that are still super exclusive and specific to Extreme models, which really still maintain its value, along with not only the power stage, but the PCB design and so many other elements, okay? So what is the best Mobo in white? I think best is relative to what's the best for your budget and your use case. The X870 tough gaming motherboard, I think is actually an outstanding option for a huge number of builders, and it's going to definitely be at a much lower price point than, let's say, the Dash A. And I think it looks great. Like, it doesn't compromise to me in terms of a board that doesn't look premium. You know, this is going to be our brand new tough gaming X870. You know, Neo-based motherboard, you're still going to have dual PCI Express Gen 5. You're going to have 40-bit connectivity. You have a quick release for the graphics card, right? You get 3 internal USB 2 headers, which actually is on every single X870 motherboard. They're all going to have 3 internal USB headers, right? You've got, you know, 20 gigabits internal front USB as well, right? You know, you got Wi-Fi 7 on there, and you've got a fantastic looking design aesthetic. So unless you need to go to some of the more premium features of, let's say, something like the ROG Strix Dash A model, which of course you could move into, that would be if you want even more premium features and functions, then, you know, maybe you want to step into that. But again, best, I don't like to just say best as being in the more expensive. I always go best based on what's your budget, what's your use case. Because if you tell me like best, but maybe you care about mini ITX, the recommendations can be very different because you're mini ITX. You can only pick certain motherboards, right? So best is always going to be relative to different factors, right? And for me, I think you get an amazing motherboard already with something like the tough gaming X870 Neo. But if you even want a higher class, this would be pretty much my highest ATX. before you get to the Glacial, right? The Glacial is going to be significantly more expensive. And I think for a lot of people, especially if you also really love that quick AIO connector design, that's where the Dash A is going to be an option that you might want to consider. Okay. Do you expect the Astro 59 availability? 5090s are still, high demand, and there's a lot of variance in terms of what we have to produce, because we have to produce literally multiple options. We have a Tough Gaming 5090, right? We have now the ProArt 5090. We have the ROG Astro 5090, and we're continuing to actively make them available. So it's not a question that we're not supporting it. It's just going to be a question that you just have to continue to monitor the channels that you are looking for availability to see notifications when the card become available. But we are actively, consistently working to make sure that we can kind of put out as many cards as we can. Okay. All right. And yeah, thanks. Feedback says that the ProArt 5090 looks amazing. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic looking card. Again, time frame for this guy's release is probably going to be, I think, closer to maybe late February to probably March timeframe. We don't have a finalized MSRP, but again, if you want flagship level, the best GPU performance on the market, then the 5090 is it. You want that 2.5 slot form factor design to be able to benefit not only small form factor, but also, like I said, higher end multi GPU based configurations, then that's going to be a great option. And I'll use this as a side opportunity to say that this could also be a cool way to tie in one of the other motherboard refreshes, which is actually going to be on the B850 side. So we will actually be releasing an update to the B650 with the ProArt B850. So that's actually going to be this guy right here. And one of the really cool things that you'll see with the ProArt B850 is you'll notice that it actually has dual PCI by 16 slots, which is pretty much nobody does that on a B850 based model, but that allows this motherboard to run dual GPUs, right? Plus, this model is also going to be upgraded to be able to have dual 5G support as well. So some really fantastic spec. If of course you want a similar spec, but you want to move also up into X870 for things like 40 gigabits connectivity, then we also have the X870 creator, which could be another option for you. And we also, of course, have the Z890 creator as well, right? So we have multiple options. And then we also, of course, have workstation-based boards like the TRX or the WRX series, if you even want to kind of go to a much higher end GPU-based configuration matrix, right, where you want to be able to run not 2 GPUs, but maybe you want to run 3 GPUs, right? You want to go even more, okay? All right. So G1000 pricing, I don't know actually what the G1000 pricing is, because it's not actually under our focus. So on the PCDIY stream, we focus only on our PCDIY core components. The G1000 is actually a systems related product. So that's actually under our business group and our team that does things like our laptops and our pre-built desktops. So the G1000, because it's not sold as individual components like motherboard, chassis, things like that, it's under a different team. So it's under the same team that does, let's say, like I said, our pre-built desktops and our laptops. I would recommend checking out the RG Pulse channel for information on those products, or make sure to check out the product page. And when there's a where to buy, it'll of course give you that corresponding link. So sorry, I can't give you any updates on that. We focus here on this stream on just our core components, essentially anything under our core component lineup. All right, so let's go ahead and go from there. Fantastic, man. All the ASUS motherboards in my house are still going strong, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, man. It's nice to be able to have that type of support. And also, it sounds like some people do like the actual USB-C port being native on the motherboard is nice to see. So cool to be able to see that, right? So that's interesting. So Level Zero says, I still would like to see more love for Radeon cards. So we already have multiple XD cards, right? We even recently did limited edition based card, but we already have Tough Gaming, and we also have our Prime Series cards, right? ROG Astral is reserved as flagship level, right? So you're only going to see the absolute fastest GPUs in their class, right? And so because the reality is that while the 97XT is a very strong performing part, it is not on the same performance tier as even, let's say, a 5080 or a 5090 in terms of the pure rasterization performance, as well as, of course, even upscaling performance and other feature set. So that's the reason why currently the ROG Astral is positioned in that flagship position of only having that GPU offering. Of course, we are a tier 1 partner with AMD. We have an amazing product stack across the AMD ecosystem, which is unmatched, right? If you take a look at everything from mini PCs to motherboards to graphics cards, right, to laptop solutions to even things like the handhelds, right? AMD is an amazing partner that we continue to work with, and we're always going to be supporting them to the best degree possible, being able to offer a comprehensive product portfolio. But in terms of Astral, you're not going to see Astral broadly be positioned. In most situations, probably every generation, you probably won't see more than maybe 1 or 2 Astrals, because again, it takes a huge level of work. And I would recommend, if you really want to understand what really makes Astral different, is you have to go back and maybe watch one of our dedicated live streams, because it's a huge undertaking. The PCB is actually entirely customized and distinct, and it has to be purposely developed. And so you can't just be like, I'm going to take this cooler and pop it onto this PCB and then it's all of a sudden Astral. Some other competitors might maybe do something like that. That's not the approach that we take when we design something like the Astral. We literally have to painstakingly go through every single design element to meet the criteria of how we want that card to be positioned and designed, right? And I would also say that the Tough Gaming card, I think, is the best XD card on the market right now. If you talk about thermal performance, PCB design, things along those lines, I think it's overall the best that's out there. So we've already kind of set the benchmark there, but I definitely know that users right. Now, where you might see the possibility of something else coming out, but this gets tricky in terms of users' price sensitivity at different graphics cards bands, is whether or not with Strix, like right now we have an ROG Strix 5070 Ti, whether or not you could see something like that also then see an AMD based derivative, right? So instead of just having like Prime, Tough Gaming, but we would maybe also offer something like an ROG Strix. The challenge that you have there is that sometimes when you're designing so many SKUs, you want to try to have that there's not a potential like overlap where you kind of go from one GPU position to another GPU position, because then sometimes users will question, why would I want to buy a lower GPU but at a higher price band, if that kind of makes sense. So we have to be very cautious at the level of models that we put out and the corresponding pricing, because we still need to be sensible about how the consumer is going to be looking at the kind of the value proposition for that product, if that kind of makes sense, right? A lot of challenges when we come to kind of thinking about that, right? Okay. Yeah, fantastic, man. Very cool to know that you have the Tough Gaming card right there. A high-end ProArt, yeah, that's something we have evaluated. Again, the challenge there is that the reality is that the market share for micro ATX motherboards is exceedingly small. It's actually very small if you compare it to the volume that you have with ATX, and so there's just not really the demand there. That's similar even just in broadly in micro ATX as well. And that's an area that we have still even put more models out, and to try to see that if the market is saying that you're willing to supposedly support these, you know, we have put out recent models, like we recently updated and a white micro ATX AM5 based offering. And again, some of these things sometimes the community says that they're actually looking for, but in reality, it's just a very small niche as opposed to really the broader market. You have to consider that the time and development alone for sometimes producing products, you could be talking about 6 to 8 months in terms of design and development time, and then the minimum production that you have to be able to kind of take over and be able to see a return to justify that design and development. It can be very, very tricky. What I would say though is if you want something that feels kind of more in alignment with ProArt, we did recently release a a WS B850 base model, and I absolutely love this model. This is the Ace, and this is a sleeper SKU. Might be one of my favorite models that we actually released in 2025 that kind of just slipped under the radar for a lot of people. But this model, it's got very just a clean, minimal design, right? It's just black and white, which of course is from our WS series. But if you talk about how this board is stacked, man, it's a little monster. You know, you've got the PCI Express Gen 5 support, right? You actually have 10 gigabit connectivity, which on a micro ATX is pretty much unheard of. You don't get 10 connectivity. You even have a secondary 2.5 gig. You do have support for USB 4 specification support. It has out of band management. It actually has, this is awesome. You have the U.2, U.3 connector, and then you also even have the NeoCore connector, which is really cool because the NeoCore connector allows you to do all kinds of other kind of high speed based interconnects. But keep in mind that like for these smaller form factor builds, being able to have something like a U.2, especially for like storage density, man, it's awesome because you have so much higher densities than having to be limited to use the kind of the M.2 configuration, because M.2 pretty much maxes out at only 8 terabytes, right? But with U.2, U.3, you can now get up to 60 terabytes. You can get 12 terabyte, you can get a 16 terabyte. You can actually get some of these used from the workstation market, which is actually pretty cool, where pricing is actually pretty reasonable. I don't know if they've gone up with kind of recent pricing and everything like that, but I remember picking up like a 12 terabyte U.2 drive. And then that was great because I was like, I didn't have to have like 3 M.2 SSDs. I just had one single 12 terabyte base volume. So this guy, if you're looking for a premium, high performance based micro ATX boards that's kind of in that ProArt vein, but comes already from our WS family, this could be an option that I would definitely recommend you kind of checking out at. Okay. All right. When will the dark here be available? Yeah, so we talked about that in our X870 first look preview. Pretty much the vast majority of the AM5 lineup we hope to have availability the very end of this month, kind of moving into next month. So February kind of release. I pretty much most of the AM5 refresh lineup, with the exception of the ProArt B850, which that board probably won't see availability until the very end of March, maybe even going into April timeframe. Most of the rest of the motherboards are going to be looking at kind of, I'd probably say mid-February probably for the availability. Could be potentially earlier than that, but I'd probably say around mid-February, kind of going into March. Depends on your country, your availability. I'm speaking to the US and Canada broadly, and of course, it also depends a little bit on channel integration, right? So every company is a little bit different. You know, Amazon has a different deployment schedule than Newegg, and they have a different schedule. So, you know, sometimes it might be super fast. You might see it pop up in the ASUS store maybe before you might see it at some other e-tailers. So I'd recommend always checking the where to buy link on the product page, and that will kind of show you in real time, because we have a backend system that tracks the e-tailers that are carrying our product to kind of show you, oh, it's now available at, you know, Micro Center, it's now available at Amazon, it's now available at Newegg, it's now available at ASUS, right? So you can actually find the different e-tailers that are actually carrying the product. Okay. All right. Yes, in terms of memory, I'll talk about memory a little bit more in a second, because I got so many monitors. I don't want to get sidetracked too much on motherboards, but I'll definitely be touching that in a little bit. Okay. So let's go to monitors, guys. I think that was the vote, right? I think most people want to know about monitors. So we got a lot of new monitors. My gosh, we're already 1 hour into this stream. Let's see how many monitors we can crack out pretty quickly. All right, guys. So first one is going to be, we're going to do LCD really quick because we got a lot of OLEDs, but there were actually some really cool updates that we had in terms of the LCDs. So let's go ahead and bang some of these guys out here in terms of giving you the updates in terms of what we have. So the first one we're going to have here is going to be actually one that I was really excited about, which is going to be the XG27 AQ-NGV, or that's essentially the ROG Strix Pulsar gaming monitor. So if you're not familiar with Pulsar, this is a very tight collaboration that we have here with NVIDIA to be able to offer essentially peak esports grade level performance in an LCD. And there's a couple of really kind of distinguishing hallmarks in terms of what makes this display really, I think, interesting. And even though we offer OLED options, and I think a lot of users, they think definitively OLED's a better experience, it's not so much that always it's going to be better. There's going to be some technologies that can be suited towards a different type of user experience. It could also be budget factors, right? If we talk about the strengths of, I think, an LCD, there's going to be a few areas that are still going to be unmatched compared to even an OLED. So the first one would be, I'd say, SDR brightness. While we continue to see improvements with OLEDs in terms of offering better and better SDR brightness, if you already have like a very bright LCD, sometimes actually when some users go from an LCD to an OLED display, they kind of go, why is it dimmer for me? Now, even though they can have higher peak brightness because they have more contrast and they can have higher peak luminance, especially like in an HDR, if you're only gaming in SDR, or if you're only using your desktop in SDR, then you'll actually notice it's actually a dimmer experience, and some people don't actually like that dimmer experience. So one, the SDR brightness is going to be stronger. The second one is unquestionably, we work really, really hard at being able to offer the most comprehensive and the best technologies available to give you burn-in mitigation, not only through a warranty, but through firmware, but through hardware designs. But LCDs have, you know, the best reliability when you talk about long-term, where you don't have to worry about any type of factor for burn-in. So if you really want to be utilizing the monitor day in and day out for productivity, for daily Windows usage, for workflow, and for gaming, an LCD is still going to offer the best experience. Now, critically, this has changed right now just for 2026, where we now have RGB native OLED panels. So I would also say historically, and in most situations, LCDs still had better text rendering. For me, I really cared about text rendering because when I use my monitor, I'm not just gaming. I'd be reading email, I'd be looking at product pages, I'd be looking at websites, I'll be looking at social feeds, you know, checking out stuff on Reddit, whatever it might be. So text was really important to me. And the pure RGB that you have on LCD was better. It was sharper and more clear in terms of the overall just text rendering performance. So that was another benefit. And then there's other little slight ones. So things like VRR flicker, it's not something you have to worry about on an LCD display. While there's actually some users that are quite sensitive to OLED VRR flicker that happens on an OLED display. And even though we have new monitors that have our anti-flicker technology, it's still something that's not entirely kind of ruled out that you have to kind of potentially account for. And then I think the balancing act in terms of the performance of the spec. This monitor is really compelling at having the 1440p at the 360 hertz, but also having that pulsar technology, which is essentially a form of backlight strobing, which can offer motion clarity, which can actually beat. It can beat, and I've seen it side by side compared to our AQDBG, which is our 500 hertz monitor. It is better motion clarity than our 500 hertz OLED panel. Is pretty impressive, because also if you talk about trying to drive the OLED monitor at 1440p at 500 hertz, that's way more horsepower that you need from your system to be able to get to than if you were trying to do that at 360 hertz. So there's a legitimate argument to make that, hey, if I can get the same or even better motion clarity experience, a brighter picture, that could still be a compelling option. And the price point, I think, is compelling. This is $699. And right now, my starting point is $699 on OLED, right? The cheapest OLED I make is, I have two new options that are coming, right, this month. One will be a QD-OLED and the other one will be a tandem OLED solution, right? But they're both 1440p and they're 280 hertz. So this monitor is actually going to even be faster in terms of the refresh rate, the motion clarity, better SDR brightness, better reliability and durability for the long term, better text rendering performance, and at the same price point. So they can definitely be value still when considering this. So I think this is a really exciting base monitor. You still get all the classic stuff that you would expect in terms of four-way ergonomics. We have full control in terms of Windows, in terms of the software suite, right, with our software and things along those lines. And some really cool, exciting technologies. I won't go into all of them because we don't have as much time. But there are some other cool things like aspect ratio. So if you want a tighter field of view, you can tune this down where you can see that you can go from the native 27, you can go to 25, you can keep perfect pixel mapping as well as an option, right? And you have also things like dedicated esports mode connectivity, and you also have a USB hub, which is also nice to see within this display. So again, this panel is going to be available very shortly. Again, $699 is the price point. You should be seeing this at a couple of different retailers, and again, you can go to the where to buy section. But I'm excited about introducing this guy here as an option. Again, this is kind of like peak LCD for those of you that maybe are like on a still either at 1080p or maybe you got like 1440p, 144, 165, and you've been debating whether or not want to go to OLED or you want to go to this. This is something you should definitely be considered, because again, at this price point, what you'd be looking at for OLED at the same price point would be a 1440p 280 hertz option, right? And there are definitely going to be benefits, but as I noted, there's still definitely a lot of benefits on this side of the fence. So this is going to be the ROG Strix Pulsar based display. I'm going to quickly see if there's any questions on that before I get to the next monitor, because there is a lot of stuff that I kind of dropped off right there. Oh, just in the the Glacials, it sounds like it's already up. Okay. Let me see right here. It sounds like you need to be doing some reading. By the way, my ROG Swift 27 PG best monitor I've ever owned. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the AQDM is a fantastic monitor. It's very bright. I would say that one thing I wish was a little bit better, and now it's definitely gotten better. Like one of my primary daily drivers is the PG27WCDN, because I really love the pixel density of 4K at 27 inches. Whereas like even when I had a 1440p display, where I had one of our best 1440p displays, right, fast IPS, the text rendering performance was better. And so I think definitely though for that monitor, that's a fantastic choice. 1440p, that 240 hertz, it's got good HDR performance, good contrast. It's actually bright. It's actually was the brightest 27 inch in its class, even compared to everybody else. That still holds up as a very, very solid monitor. So I would agree, still a very solid choice all the way around. So let's just see one question here before I go to the next one. So what is all around the best type screen for gaming and production? If not the ProArt scheme with the dark coding, which one is the absolute best for image quality? So this is a very subjective statement. So one, we do have ProArt OLEDs, and then we also have ROG OLEDs. Sometimes they're actually using the same panel, but we're going to do differences in terms of how we might approach some of the color validation, even some of the settings, and other kind of aspects in terms of connectivity or other elements. If your focus is gaming, I would say within the gaming focus, because there's always going to be optimizations that we want to put into the design that is going to benefit for a gamer. Now, when you talk about the coding or the best image quality to some degree can be subjective. And I know people would say, well, it can't be subjective. It's image quality, right? It can be because different types of panels can present different benefits. So an example is in the past, when you took an OLED, you would have AR matte coatings OLED. So that would be anti-reflective. It wasn't glossy. These were generally going to be on WOLED products. So like we had like a PG27 AQDP, right? And that was a WOLED 1440p, 480 hertz. And actually, I really like AR because depending on the lighting, it means that whenever I had light hit the screen, I didn't see reflections because I didn't want to see myself and I didn't want to see reflections hitting my monitor, especially if I had something from a window hitting the monitor, if that makes sense. Now, there are some people that goes like, hey, I don't have any lights hitting this. I control my thing. I turn off all my lights and I don't have to worry about reflections. Then maybe you actually might prefer something like a semi-gloss base panel, which are going to be pretty much all QD-OLED. All QD-OLED are always going to have semi-gloss. But QD-OLED then had sometimes the negative, what's called ambient light handling, so that when light would hit it, you could get, no, this wouldn't be present generally when you were gaming or watching content, but you would get a color shift and it would go from like black to like a purple tinge, right? Now that's been resolved with our new Black Shield film, where we have new displays, a 34-inch that has Black Shield, and also a new 32-inch that has Black Shield. But not everything in our lineup has Black Shield yet. So take, for instance, like the 1440p 500 still doesn't have Black Shield, right? And we have other QD-OLED solutions that don't have the Black Shield. So you have to kind of like, well, do I want the 34? Do I want the 32? Or am I more looking for a 27-inch, right? And then we have another interesting alternative, which is going to be our WOLED, or now our tandem OLEDs that actually have our true gloss black coating. Now that is actually the clearest coating that we offer. It's actually even clearer than QD-OLED's semi-gloss, where we consider this a true gloss because it's zero haze, and it also doesn't have that little color tinge. So technically, if we want to talk about image quality, some people might interpret that the true gloss black monitors that we have are the best for image clarity. And I'd say that they're pretty freaking hard to beat, right? But image quality can be also subjective. Do you care about text? Do you not care about text? Do you care about the color saturation? Like, what do you want to prioritize? And that's why I say it's subjective. Some people sometimes prioritize one thing over another. For me, I think overall kind of the best monitor in kind of like a Venn diagram is probably going to be our 27-inch 4K 240 hertz monitors. So right now we just announced the new one at CES with the PG27WCDN, and then we also had the PG27UCDM or the XG27. So one is a tandem 4K 240, and the other one's a QD-OLED 240. The main reason why I consider those the best is because it has the best balance of everything for me, because I want the PPI, the sharpness of 4K at 27, even when I'm using my monitor as a monitor when I'm not gaming. I love also the sharpness of gaming at 4K if my games can play at 4K, because I like to do casual games. Maybe I'm going to play an RTS, or I'm going to play Forza, or I'm going to play Silksong, or I'm going to play, you know, something where I can ratchet those settings up, even something like Cyberpunk. But then if you want more competitive gameplay, you know, you could maybe have options to drop that down, and 1440p at 27 still looks really good. So even if the monitor doesn't have a toggle, 1440p at 27 looks great. So I can do 1440p, 240 hertz. Or like that tandem option, which has a toggle at FHD at 27 inches and 480 hertz, is actually really exciting as well. And that one has a pure RGB, which would be, I think, even the best. So again, some of this is subjective. It just kind of depends on where you think your kind of interest is and where you want to kind of prioritize things, right? So sorry, we kind of got off a little bit back there. I'll go back to some questions, but we got the pulsar display. Let's kind of keep moving things along here for another display. So another display, again, on the LCD side, before we get to the OLEDs, is going to be this guy, which I think is a really cool update that we have, which is going to be the XG27JCG. And with this guy, the really cool thing about this is quite unique because there's not really a comparable to this in the OLED space, right? So what makes this guy special is here you're going to actually have a display that is going to be 5K. And this follows up actually the ProArt display that we had released at 5K, but it was a 5K 60 hertz. So this actually is going to give you actually gaming grade connectivity with a really exciting dual mode base of operation. So this is going to be 5K, right, at 180 hertz, right, which is crazy in terms of the refresh rate. You're generally not going to be gaming at 5K and 180 hertz, right? You would even a 5090 is not going to be able to offer that, right, unless you're talking a much more casual kind of game or something along those lines. But that fluidity and that experience of being able to offer that from a desktop experience is fantastic. So if maybe you're a hybrid creator, you really want that ultra sharp pixel density, maybe you also want cross compatibility to use this with like a Mac product where 5K is a retina resolution. Keep in mind also the 4K scaling at 27 inches, right? And also something like 180 hertz would also still be fantastic and definitely could be more drivable than like that 5K. But having that option, I think, is cool. But I love that you actually have a toggle to be able to do 27 inches at 1440p at 330 hertz. And keep in mind with this LCD, you're still going to get better SDR brightness than you would also have on an OLED. And this one's pretty exciting. The price point This is going to be 850 bucks. It should be launching later this month. I think this is a really exciting update, again, to just be able to show we have an unprecedented lineup to be able to give you the most flexibility, whatever you're looking for, kind of within what your monitor configuration is and what you value. We've got a monitor, I think, for that scenario. So actually, I'm a really big fan of this guy. Again, 5K, 180 hertz, toggle to also 330 hertz at QHD. So 1440p coming in at $850. And if you talk about kind of respective price banding, like what would you be able to get like at $850? This would probably start to get you into our entry 32-inch OLED. So we have like the UCDS, which is like our 4K 165 QD-OLED 32-inch monitor if you wanted to kind of have like a rough analog, and then also of course other 1440p based monitors that we would have at over 360 hertz. So that's kind of like where your comparables are at, and you're still about $100 away from the 27-inch 4K OLED based options. So this is still sitting in a very interesting kind of spot for this display with the again the ROG XG27JCG. Okay, so that is another update that we have for that one there. And I'm gonna go one more display, and then I'm gonna go back to see if there's any questions on anything. So please just be patient with me here, guys. So another update is going to be this one, which I think is actually pretty cool. And this is going to be an update to a pre-existing monitor that we had, which is the XG27UCG, but it's going to be Gen 2. So the cool thing about this monitor is we were the first vendor to actually release a dual mode LCD on the market originally. And the cool item that we have actually with this XG27UCG, the Gen 2, is so that the prior one was a 4K 160 hertz. And this one is also, actually, let me remove this here and let me reshare this. This is also still going to be 4K at 160 hertz, but we've updated the toggle mode. So the toggle mode previously was an FHD at over 300 hertz, and now we go FHD at 480 hertz. So this is actually pretty exciting. We haven't finalized the price. Actually, let me see if we have maybe a finalized price. Let me see if I have it for this model. But the prior model was actually $499, which at the time they were releasing, it actually came down. I think we dropped it $50 or maybe $100. That was a really exciting monitor for like getting like 4K and the dual HD operating mode and kind of everything that it kind of came in with that model. But let me see here if I have the updated price for that dual mode. That one should be $399 is right now the potential projected price point, which I think that's pretty awesome. So $400 for a 27-inch 4K 160 hertz, and then with the FHD toggle at 480 hertz, that's awesome. Plus you get the FreeSync Premium Pro, the G-Sync compatibility, the high color gamut performance, good response time, USB connectivity, four-way ergonomics, right? Controllable within Windows using the the display widget center software, right? And all that kind of cool stuff baked in. I think this is a really exciting option for, again, $400. And we've dropped some awesome updates towards the end of last year in terms of LCDs, where we also had the Tough Gaming 5 series, which was a new update where that was a 1440p 300 hertz for $299. And we've even done promotions on that one down to $200. So keep in mind, for the price that you dropped on one OLED 1440p 280 hertz, again, $600, $599, you could literally buy two Tough Gaming 5 27-inch fast IPS 300 hertz displays, which for like a dual monitor setup for streaming, that's an insane value, right? And again, if you got them on promo, that would have been even $200 less. So you would have came in at $400 plus taxes, right? Versus $600 plus taxes, right? So you got to be able to talk about that. There's still a compelling value proposition to be able to see when you have, LCDs that you're going to be considering here. So this is going to be a cool update. This one's not going to be a little bit later. I think this is probably not going to see availability until probably mid to late Q2. So we're probably going to be talking probably May timeframe is probably what I think for this model. And that the JCG, the 5K model should be actually this month. Late this month should be for availability. Okay. All right. So let me quickly go just see if there's any questions that kind of popped up there. So give me 1 second. We're going to go into OLEDs now. So I know all the people want OLEDs. Actually, I think I have one LCD left, one LCD, and then I will get to OLEDs. So sorry about that. What is the limiting factor for max refresh rates on these 4K panels? There's actually a lot of factors. There's not just like one thing. You can't just arbitrarily be like, oh, you just can push faster refresh rates. Refresh rates can be tied to different things like the scaler, and bandwidth requirements, also tuning for firmware. There can also be aspects that actually can be degraded. So if you make the panel faster, you can actually have compromises on things like color performance, or on the overall kind of perceived image quality. For many users, they don't want to compromise. They just want faster and faster, but they want everything else to stay the same. So like, I want still the same color gamut, I still want the same clarity, I still want everything the same, I just even want a faster display. So but that also has to be balanced between like even GPU sensibility, between the IO specification, validation. So there's a lot of things. And again, we're the envelope just keeps pushing and pushing more and more and more, right? Again, right now we're already at 4K 240, and the reality is it's almost impossible unless you're talking about a much more casual game title. There's not any system that's on the market that can power a 4K 240 hertz native gaming experience. It's not even possible. So even, let's say, making a 4K 360 hertz monitor has minimal value, right? But we're even kind of starting to push that envelope, right? The new Ultrawide, which is not 4K, it'll be 3440 by 1440. That's a bit easier to drive, but that's a 3440 by 1440 at 360 hertz. So of course we're going to keep pushing it further and further, but I think the reality of having things like flexible dual modes is really the right pathway, because then that way you can have the best of both worlds. You can have scenarios where you can drive something at the 4K resolution and the higher refresh rate if it's sensible for you and your system configuration, but you can also drive much easier base resolutions, right, that might be more complementary to actually what you can achieve within those games, especially if you also want to maximize things like image clarity. Okay. Hey, Bill, I'm sorry to hear about your thoughts in that regard. If you definitely have feedback that you think is actually well-defined, that is something that we can actually take a look at, we're always interested at. I would recommend reaching out to our service and support team. Or you can also send an email over to PCDIY@asus.com. We also have an escalation email that's directly on our service and support team to be able to take a look at whatever it is that you feel that is something that could be improved upon. But I would definitely ask that you consider that. And Happy New Year's, man. Best in that respect, okay? All right. I like that one. Mayor McCheeseburger. How you doing, man? Thank you so much. All right. So it's happy to have you there on that regard, man. So thank you so much. So any ideas when the XA70 will be available? Yeah, so I think I noted this a little bit earlier, and again, you can check it out on the First Look preview page. First Look preview, we already talked about the availability pretty much for the vast majority of all of the new XA70 based refresh models. You should be seeing availability. I can't speak to the EU, but for the US, you're pretty much going to see availability probably happening, I think, within February timeframe, as I noted, except for the ProArt. For the ProArt model, you're not going to see that guy until probably late March going into April timeframe. But for the vast majority of the other motherboards, some of them could be potentially as listed as early as the very end of this month. But I think probably for more broad availability, it's probably going to fall into overall kind of February-based timeframe. All right. So I goes, I would like to know that too, looking at the Dark Hero. So what was the question right there? Did he mention the release date for the motherboards? I heard that the XA70 was slated for March 1st. It should be actually a little bit earlier than that. Again, channel availability can kind of go a little bit, it can vary depending on different individuals, right? So yeah, so let's go ahead and go into the next model right here. So it says, bought my first 1440p monitor just before COVID in 2020. It was dating an ASUS, and now I'm excited to buy my first OLED. Yeah, I would definitely say if you got 1440p, I don't know what you bought, but I think right now is a great time to consider it, especially like I said, with this January, we've got the new 1440p 280 hertzes coming at $599. I think those are outstanding options because you get solid SDR brightness. You're going to get really great HDR. That 280 hertz is a great kind of refresh rate zone that you might not even be able to hit right now, but it's still going to be reasonable, I think, for years to come in terms of a good kind of target. You don't break the bank in terms of being super expensive. If you even consider that if you want to go for a dual monitor configuration, that's essentially almost the price of having one large 32-inch, which our flagship 32-inch is like $1299. It would be around the same price. I really love both of those options, so we're going to have those available this month. Again, 1440p 280 hertz. So I think you got a good kind of timing that you're kind of balancing out there. But let's keep this going, guys. Again, I don't even remember where I was at, right? Oh, okay, I talked about the UCG. So that was the dual mode LCD. And then a quick one right here, this Tough Gaming Live. This is just going to be kind of a new entry spot option that we're going to have. This is a 4K 75 hertz and then FHD at 300 hertz for this guy. And that one is going to be $280. So that I think is again another little bit of a banger display when you talk about kind of feature function spec for the price. $280 for 4K 75 hertz. It'll be a fast IPS, have good color gamut performance. I think it's actually 95% DCI-P3, so it's a wide gamut based monitor. And again, that 300 hertz at the FHD I think is pretty cool at that 27 inches. So again, for $280, that one should also probably be though like around a May based time frame for the release. All right, guys. So we're going to get into OLEDs now. I know we talked about the LCDs, so let's get into all the OLEDs here. So the first one that we're going to touch on is going to be the flagship. It is going to be the the latest monitor that we just announced coming in from CES right here. And so I think the real big exciting part that you have within this is one of the, I'd say, most anticipated technologies for OLEDs has been the introduction to have what's called a pure RGB stripe based design. And the reason why this is actually important is that, as I was talking before in prior generations, and this was actually true for WOLED, or now when we transition even to tandem OLED technology, right, which eliminates that wide subpixel, or if you take a look at QD-OLED, right, neither one were a native RGB. And the big benefit that you have with essentially a native RGB is going to be reduced text fringing, and you're also going to have overall better sharpness and detailed presentation in terms of the pixel rendering, especially for desktop user experience. So in the past, when I would try to just be very clear with users, really the easiest way to understand where the value proposition was happening was, I would say, when you're using your monitor as a monitor, right? You're using it like, again, for text, for email, for websites, for forums, for things along those lines where you're looking at text. This is where you could clearly see a difference, and an LCD was superior. LCDs were the gold standard, the best option for image clarity when it came to text rendering, because they had native RGB, where on OLEDs, their subpixel structure was not native to this. So they could give you better pixel response, they could give you better saturation, they could give you, of course, better even motion clarity, a lot of other things, but in that area, they were still not as good. So the exciting update is we actually have two monitors. One actually is a QD-OLED, and the other one's a tandem-based OLED, but they are both going to have this new RGB stripe technology. With that new RGB stripe technology, you're now going to have essentially that equal level, I'd say, of text rendering performance that you had when you would compare that to an LCD. So for me, I'm really, really excited about this. And the first monitor that we have with this type of technology that we're going to talk about is going to be a 27-inch tandem-based offering. So let's go ahead and bring this one up. And this is going to be the PG27 UCWM. Okay, so this is actually going to be pretty similar to a display that we already had in our lineup with the PG27 UCDM. Okay, so not UCWM, but UCDM. And that was a QD OLED option. This is the thing that's quite unique about ASUS. We're really the company that has been at the pioneering forefront of offering the most solutions, because we work both with the QD OLED panel sourcing, and then we also work with the tandem-based sourcing, or WOLED sourcing. So in that regard, we actually have the most comprehensive OLED product stack of any manufacturer. And so here, we had already a 27-inch 4K 240 hertz QD OLED option, which was the PG27 UCDM. This option is essentially going to look very similar because it's a 4K 27-inch 240 hertz bay option, but this one will carry the benefit of being the tandem technology, which gives you the better efficiency, overall even longer operating lifespan, right? You're also going to have that native pure RGB stripe, which is going to give you that better text rendering. And this one will also be a first for tandem and for WOLED, which has Dolby Vision. Previously, we only offered Dolby Vision on QD OLED-based monitors, but now this will be the first one that offers Dolby Vision certification. You also got the little cool thing here where you can run the FHD at 480 hertz, which I still think looks quite good in a 27-inch base setup. And you can actually, if you want, pro tip, you could run this in the aspect ratio mode, where you could run 1440p at 240 hertz as well. So you got actually kind of like almost like three different modes: native 4K 240, and then native FHD 480, and then aspect ratio 24.5 at 1440p 240. Of course, full factory calibration, full software suite that we have on here for Display Widget Center. You have, of course, the Neo Proximity Sensor, which detects your presence, can automatically turn the panel off to maximize the lifespan of the product. You have the advanced ergonomic adjustments, USB-C power delivery, that new cool translucent design that we have on the display. I think I might have a picture of it. Let me see if I have a picture. Yeah, this is a little cool picture of the new translucent design on the back, so you can see right there that really cool kind of new translucent design and that ultra stable base that we have with the PG base setup. So this guy, I don't have a confirmed release target 100% for this one. I think this is probably going to be much later in the year, so probably I would estimate right now I'm thinking about probably Q3. Okay, so if you really are looking to probably be able to purchase a display, I think in the foreseeable future, I would say that the QD-OLED option that we already have, that 27 4K, is a fantastic option. Been daily driving that one. That's a great choice for you. And we actually have two variants of that. We have an XG version, which is a little bit lower cost. Still actually is going to give you 4K 240. It's just a different stand. Doesn't have the higher DP specifications support or Dolby Vision, but you save money and it's a great choice. I really, really like that monitor. So if you don't want to wait that long, consider the QD-OLED option that we already have. Pricing for this one is probably going to be $12.99. Keep in mind, this pricing is not finalized. Pricing could change when we actually do release the market, because again, we're so far away from this release. But this will be an exciting update for those of you who are looking for that ultra sharp kind of PPI and that really great text rendering experience. Okay, so before I go from that monitor, I do want to see if there's any quick questions on that one. If not, we're going to probably go to the next display within the lineup. Okay. So let me see. Is there an ASUS? If an ASUS monitor releases in 2026, we assume. Okay, so that's a good question. If an ASUS OLED monitor releases in 2026, should we assume that it has the RGB stripe? No, you should always look at the specifications, because since we work with multiple panel source vendors and sometimes the technology is not always available within every permutation of a panel size, we're going to have other monitors that are going to be launching. So right now, take for instance like the new tandem displays, right? And this is kind of tricky. That new tandem monitor, which is a 2026 release, which will come out later in this year, will have the RGB stripe. But we also haven't even shipped the new tandem. So we have tandem 1440p 540 hertz. It's going to be available this month. And there's also the 1440p 280 hertz, kind of the baby brother version of that monitor, which it's probably going to be a little bit later. But those both will not have actually RGB. They're 1440p up 540 or 1440p 280, but they do not have that. So you should definitely not make that assumption. And I also don't take it incorrect in that the experience is going to be poor. It's still very good. And for many users, they might feel that all of the other benefits they get from OLED still offers that the experience that they feel is unquestionably better than what they maybe have in an LCD. And it kind of somewhat depends, I think, on your criticalness and what you really value within your monitor. For me, I really value text rendering. So I know definitively, just like I really cared about SDR brightness, right? But I was also using a really, really nice, two of our flagship LCDs, right? A flagship, 1440p LCD display with really high SDR brightness and really great text rendering. And then also I had a mini LED ROG 4K display. So it was really hard for me to go to OLED because I was like, the text rendering just isn't as good here. That mattered to me. You might not be as critical for you. It still looks really good. I would just say in terms of kind of levels, A level would be on an LCD. And then without the RGB, I would say it would probably be B to B+. Depends a little bit on the pixel density. Take, for instance, like 4K at 27 inches. Even without the PRGB, still looks really, really good. And the text rendering is minimal. It's not like super horrible. It's just, it is present, but you would see a difference, if that kind of makes sense. Okay. All right. Love them all. The Swift OLED, UCWM. Okay. So you need to simplify the naming scheme. I'd love to hear your thoughts. There is no way. When we hear people that say that they criticize, even media that criticizes, to be frank, if you want to be able to criticize, give us some actually solid feedback on what you think, because there is no way to make a simple naming convention. And I know people wish they say make a simpler one. There is no way, because if you talk about the complexity of the permutations of the naming convention, you have to have these model designations. How else do you have a model node designation that gives you clarity at knowing what's the resolution for the monitor? And if we go through the letters, like U is actually UHD. So that actually gives you 4K, right? But if you have 4K, well, then what's the refresh rate, right? Does it have a certain type of connectivity, right? What's the actual panel type? Just those being base things are going to add something like those 3 to 4 letters. And we try to already clarify it in the beginning, where, of course, the front of the naming is always the size, right? So if it's a PG27, it's a 27 inch. If it's a PG32, it's a 32 inch, right? So there is clarity there. And even the difference between PG and XG, well, PG means it's a flagship grade monitor. So you get generally the best spec of whatever we can offer. XG can still be really, really nice, but it's always going to be maybe a little bit of a slight spec down, right? So we have tried to clarify it as much as possible, but it's the challenge that if we were only making a couple of monitors, it'd be very easy to simplify, I think, the naming convention. But the reality is, with so many different types of refresh rates, resolutions, panel type specifications, you're going to inherently have a little bit of this extended naming convention, which is just challenging, right? And we understand that. But that's why the best thing you can do is you put in the model name, you go to the product page, and you try to inform yourself to find that out. We also have made like a landing page that has all the comparison charts to make it try the easier so that you can look model to model and know kind of what the differences are in that regard, if that makes sense, right? This was a good question. Will we make a white variant? Right now, there's no confirmed white variant that we would make for that model, but I think it is something internally that we're evaluating. So you could potentially see a white version, okay? So will the PG27UCWM be better in a technical aspect and picture than my AQDM? Yes, I would say unquestionably. And that just comes from a couple of different things. One, you're using a much earlier version of the WOLED panel. So if you just talk about even color saturation, right? So the colors themselves, they're going to actually be in a wider gamut, right? So they're going to be actually more saturated. There's going to be actually better individualization between the gradation scales. You would actually, luminance performance actually for that monitor is really, really, really good. It's been actually hard to beat it. It was actually almost like an anomaly. There's some interesting reasons behind that. But overall, yes, this would be for me, I would say it would be one of the best upgrades because you're going to go to a much more pixel dense image. Like I would be considering a 27 4K 240 option because even though the max refresh rate isn't higher, if we talk about from a picture quality where I'm talking about colors and I'm talking about sharpness, right? Then you would be definitely getting those two key areas that would be actually improved upon. But you've got a great, really overall well-suited monitor for general daily use, for daily driving. So it's still a very solid option, but yes, I would say that. And keep in mind that I would still say that you would see this improvement even if you went to some of the other options, like some of the new 280 hertz options. You would have to go all the way up to this. But my recommendation, probably from what you have, if you want the most improvement, is I would, from a PPI focus, I would say be looking at a 27 4K. Okay. All right. So let's go to the next one here. Sorry, where was I at? Okay. Yeah, okay, yeah. So we're going to go to the PG32UCDM 3 or the Gen 3. So this is a really interesting one, guys. So this is an actually update to a monitor that we already had in our lineup, right? So we already had the PG32UCDM. This was our kind of one of our prior flagship 32 inches. And we actually had two versions. So we had the PG32UCDP. So that was a WOLED. That was a WOLED 4K 240 hertz and had an FHD toggle to 480 hertz. It was also an AR coating, right? So that means anti-reflective coating, so it wasn't glossy. And then we had the PG32UCDM, which was a QD-OLED 4K 240 hertz, no toggle options, and then a semi-gloss. Now, last year, we also introduced a variant of the PG32UCDP, so that WOLED, in the XG32U series. And that actually introduced a WOLED, but for the first time having actually a true gloss coating. And that is quite interesting because we then were able to eliminate kind of that color shift effect that you had when you talk about ambient light handling on the QD-OLED, but on the WOLED side, and for an even clearer picture than you had on the QD-OLED side. Now, there were still some, I would say, perceived benefits, and this depends on the user or what they want. WOLED could sometimes maybe have better peak brightness, but it would actually even depend on the content scenario. Not always the case. Actually, in some cases, WOLED could be less than QD-OLED. It could be vice versa. It just very much depends on the content. But the exciting update here with the Gen 3 is if we're only looking at just Gen 1 to this Gen 3, what did we do? So the prior one and this one are the core still same spec. 4K 240 hertz, 4K 240 hertz. So where do we make the updates? The first one is going to be in the Black Shield film. So the Black Shield film is quite an exciting new technology update. This will significantly improve the contrast, the perceived contrast. So when ambient light hits this, you don't get that color shift anymore from it kind of going black to kind of like less black. So the perceived contrast is maintained and actually looks even improved. And then the other part is going to be the resiliency of the panel. Generally, sometimes when you would try to clean a prior QD OLED based panel, you could actually get micro abrasions or scuffs or scratches. This is actually going to be up to 2.5 times more resilient to scuffs and scratches. So it's going to be quite a bit easier to be able to clean and maintain. So the Black Shield film is the first one, okay? The second one, though, is actually a little bit under the radar, and you might not even be able to realize it. But the EL material, the panel material itself, is actually of a newer generation on this version than it is on Gen 1. This actually means that the luminance performance, the brightness, is actually better on Gen 3 than it is on Gen 1. So this also allows us to actually certify this unit in a higher class. So this is certified actually for an HDR True Black 500 certification. The prior generation was an HDR True Black 400 certification. But in the mid-range of kind of where brightness performance is, not so much in the peak brightness, but in the mid-range for game and for video content, you'll actually notice a bit of a brighter experience on this monitor. Now, other updates, this one has the Neo proximity sensor, where the prior one didn't have. That's our essentially sensor that's built in, right, that automatically detects your presence. If you're away from the monitor, it automatically turns the panel off to be able to maximize the lifespan and reduce things like burn-in. We then have DP 2.1A, right, which, to be honest, I will 100% say there's no concern for you. If you're using DSC DP 1.4 between DP 2.1A, one, you have to have a 50 series graphics card. It's pretty much the only option to even be able to have DP 2.1A. But really the only benefit is what's called the black box effect, which is kind of like when you alt tab between a game and your desktop. Because you're using compression in DSC, you can actually have a little bit of compression artifact or black box that occurs because you're compressing this image, which is changing from you being in the game to the desktop. Where if you don't have any compression happening, it's just a much more seamless animation, super quick. Most people do not even realize that there's any type of compression that's happening because you're so used to it. Your brain just processes it from point A to point B, if that makes sense. But in this new situation, excuse me, with this new specification, without any of that compression, it's super streamlined, really easy. And just a nice kind of creature comfort. But again, you have to have a latest generation graphics card to even benefit from that. Okay, so Neo proximity sensor DP 2.1A. Now, another feature, it's not even noted on there, but it's a byproduct of also that new panel material and some new underlying improvements, is this actually also has our anti-flicker 2.0 tech. So anti-flicker 2.0 tech actually helps us to compensate some of the voltage handling at the swings that happen when brightness performance change, especially when VRR is present. Now, OLED flicker when VRR occurs is quite subjective, depends on the game and even the user. Some people are sensitive to it, some people are not sensitive to it. And again, it can vary heavily based on the game that you're playing. For me, Cyberpunk is one of the best games that I've seen where I can clearly see it when it kind of goes, swings from like 70 frames a second to like 200 frames a second, or when we go from like a dark scene to like a bright scene, you can sometimes get this flicker. This is inherent to just the fundamental OLED technology and experience. But we have some technologies that we have built in with anti-flicker 2.0 to help to mitigate against that. So that is another update that you will have. The prior one didn't have the anti-flicker 2.0 tech. This one has the anti-flicker 2.0 tech. Some other stuff that we retroactively added in, like enhanced auto KVM, enhanced picture-in-picture by picture support, adjustable HDR, those are all going to still be there. Now, there's still some other little cool things that we throw in there as well. The prior one was an external AC adapter. This one actually is an internal AC adapter. So the AC adapter is fully built into the monitor. We actually also tweaked the back of the monitor's design where it's actually more recessed. So the design here on the back of the display is actually been more recessed, that if you wall mount this display in the prior gen, you might have sometimes kind of seen cables kind of be visible under the lip of the base of the monitor, if that makes sense, right? You kind of see them potentially show, but it's been more recessed up and in to where when you run those cables, you pretty much probably won't see any of those cables at all. So that's another area that we've actually improved upon that from the prior generation. So quite a number of little things that are actually present there. Keep in mind that the prior Gen 1's pretty much being processed out, and the Gen 3 will be its overall replacement. We expect the channel availability for this model to be present as we go right towards the end of this quarter going into the next quarter. So probably in or around till like March timeframe. The UCDS, which is actually a great more entry option, which was based off this panel, but a slightly lower refresh rate, will continue to be in the channel. And I think is one of the best options if you want to save some money, because I think that model is sub $1,000 in terms of price point. This will carry over the same MSRP. So those will be $1,299 to $1,299, but you're going to get all of those upgrades that I talked about, right? So black shield film, HDR, true black 500 with the improved luminance performance, right? You're going to get the Neo proximity sensor. You're going to get the DP 2.1A. You're going to get the integrated power design. You're going to get the new recessed lipped, right? The anti-flicker tech is also going to be there. So all of that stuff is going to be baked in. And I think this one also has enhanced new picture-in-picture by picture options as well. So let me go ahead and quickly see if there's any questions on there. Because again, I know I covered a lot, right? So let me see here. Is there any monitor? Sorry. So will any of these monitors come in a box with pictures on the box, or is that all plain boxes? Oh, interesting. If I'd have to double check with our team. So generally we usually do like a corrugated box, right? And then there's the box within that, if that makes sense. So the primary box should have actually a thing to display, but we've also made changes to this. And this is something I know some users are sensitive about because some users really like nice boxes. So like we do this like on the motherboard side, especially for ROG, where we have really, really nice boxes. And a lot of people sometimes want to keep those. But there is actually, we have a very big focus on doing ESG, so environmental guidelines of how we can improve things. So when you go to boxes that don't have any kind of lamination on them, or don't have actually special types of inks or things that are actually more difficult to break down, going with essentially a more plain box is essentially just more environmentally friendly, and it's a more sustainable practice. So there's a lot of actually external packaging material that we always are looking at, is going like, what's the balance of ensuring that it meets our qualification standards for durability and transit shipment. And we actually have very high standards for this. I can tell you actually, even something like our chassis, we actually beat our competitor by 2x factor in terms of actually drop height or compression force or stuff like that. So we definitely look at these things. They're important to us, but we also have to evaluate how they meet benchmarks in terms of environmental sustainability. But that's an area that we also know feedback, because sometimes some users want to keep boxes, but I think less people are more prone to probably keep something as large as a monitor box, as opposed to, we do see people like to keep like graphics card boxes and motherboard boxes, maybe a bit more. Okay. So let me see right here. When will the 27AQWP-W come in here in the States, and will there be any update? Yeah, so I noted that a little bit earlier, but we expect the availability to be this month for this model, for that model. That's the 1440p 540 hertz monitor. It should be late this month in terms of the overall availability for that guy. Okay. When will we get WOLED tandem? Technically, it wouldn't be WOLED if it's tandem, right? Tandem would be just tandem, right? You would just call it tandem. I can't speak to that, right? So we can't discuss anything that is in design development pipeline or is under NDA. So again, when we have an exciting update to talk about some type of new display, rest assured we'll talk about it here on the stream and let you know when something's available. But otherwise, you just got to keep it tuned. If that's a spec that you're hoping for to see, then you just kind of continue to wait until hopefully that technology comes to the market, right? That's just the nature of the beast, right? And then, is VRR anti-flicker 2.0 actually on the WP-W? That's actually a really good question. And as of right now, the actually anti-flicker 2.0 technology is actually something that had to be worked very closely with the QD-OLED design group. So that's actually right now technology that we only have available on QD-OLED based solutions. So again, if you find that super critical for you, then you would want to go on that. Now, what we'll say is that subjectively, there's, because of some differences in the way that the actual underlying panel technologies are tuned and they work, some users may find that actually the sensitivity to something like flicker has actually been generally present less on a WOLED or on a tandem OLED than it has been on a QD OLED. So there could be an interesting argument to say maybe you don't need it because it's not actually as noticeable. But I will say overall, VRR flicker has still been noticed. I have to disclose that fact of you saying that, are there still users that have reported experience on both type of panels? Yes. But I would say subjectively, based on what we've seen, right, we see that some users generally report it less on WOLED or tandem-based solutions, although tandem is brand new, so there's not as much data to kind of quantify that yet, but at least for WOLED, than we've seen for feedback from QD OLED. But if you specifically want the anti-flicker 2.0 tech, you would have to look at a QD OLED ASUS offering. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go into the next option. So this is going to be our other RGB stripe monitor. So remember, we talked about already a tandem RGB stripe. Now we've got another RGB stripe, but instead of tandem, now it's going to be QD OLED. So again, very important to remember, right, that we have different types of panels and they're going to have different corresponding technologies. So now we're going to go to our next one. And this one's going to be an exciting update because this is an update that has been coming for a while. We did actually release like a soft update to a 34-inch QD OLED around late Q3 of last year going into Q4. And actually, there's a banger deal right now. If you want to get an awesome QD OLED monitor from ASUS that's 34 inches, we actually have right now the 34-inch on sale. The 34-inch is on sale for $200 off, which for me, that is a great monitor deal where I would say I would pick that up without hesitation. I think it's a fantastic monitor for the feature, function, and spec. Let me see if I can bring it up for you here really quick. Yeah, I'll bring it up for you guys before I show you this one. So we previously had a WOLED 34-inch, and that was 3440 by 1440, 240 hertz, right? That one came in at a higher price point. It was a really aggressive curvature. This is actually a much more conservative curvature for this new update. It's going to be only 1800R, but the current monitor that I have that I want to show you guys that is on promo, if you guys want to pick one up right now, is going to be this guy. So this is a great option if you want to pick something up. This is going to be the XG34WCDG. We released this just very recently, but it's on promo right now. Normally $1,000, right now $800. So you can get this for actually $200 off. This is a 3440 by 1440 QD-OLED 175 hertz refresh rate, True Black 400, great color performance in terms of color gamut on this guy. You get all of the latest stuff that we normally have on our display, the Neo proximity sector, factory calibration, adjustable HDR, right, 3-year warranty, picture-in-picture by picture support, USB PD with 15-watt power delivery, right, OSD display, even the really cool compact XG base. I think this is an awesome option that kind of flew under the radar for some people, and they didn't even know that we had this guy out. Great choice. But we're focusing on CES, and we're focusing on the new stuff. So let's get to the new monitor, and we're going to touch on the new one. So this is going to be the PG34WCD. Yes. Yeah. WCDN, right? So this is going to be essentially, again, this is going to be a 34-inch display, 1800R curvature, pure RGB stripe. So again, everything we talked about previously with the RGB stripe, you get that on this benefit as well. This one also has the Black Shield film. So all the same benefits that we talked about Black Shield being on the PG32UCDM, the Gen 3 version, is also going to apply here. This is exciting because this is the fastest QD-OLED right there for that ultra wide, right? Previously, the flagship was going to be 240. This is going to be 360 hertz. So 3440 by 1440, 360 hertz, that 1800R curvature, the Black Shield, the Neo proximity sensor, DP 2.1A, 90-watt power delivery. This one also has an entirely brand new set of features that we have for our picture-in-picture and picture-by-picture support, which is really exciting. We now have 8 options for picture-in-picture or picture-by-picture support. So you can kind of go like, put the window right here, you can put the window right here, you can put the windows side by side, or you can actually move them off to like an offset to the left or offset to the right. But there's 8 options that we have available that are built into picture-in-picture by picture support. This unit also has auto KVM technology. So that means if you plug your peripherals into the monitor, so your keyboard and your mouse, and you have 2 devices connected, you can actually have the monitor essentially share your peripherals to those 2 devices, so you don't have to switch connections between devices. So I really love that feature on an ultra wide based display as well. So this is going to be, I think, a fantastic option that we have here that we've updated within the lineup. I think it's giving a lot of value within what we're going to be offering right here. This is going to be you're going to probably start to see reviews hopefully start to come up pretty soon for this monitor. I would say within Q1, maybe as late as maybe this month. But in terms of overall availability, it's going to be probably towards the very end of this quarter. So we're talking about probably mid to late March going into April timeframe. And again, the projected MSRP for this guy should be probably an estimate right now of $12.99 should be the actual MSRP for this model. Now, I will note to this for you guys that are interested in this option, we will actually also have a really cool XG variant of this monitor. So PG is always kind of our flagship model. The XG usually takes all of the great core specs, and we just have a little bit of a reduction. But you generally save yourself, sometimes $100, or it could be a couple $100. I don't have the pricing yet for the XG version, but the XG34 will still be the pure RGB stripe, still be 34 by 1440, still have the Black Shield technology. So the main 3 areas that you're going to reduce from the PG to the XG is going to be that the XG version will be 280 hertz instead of 360 hertz. I think that's fantastic. I love that, right? So still really, really nice refresh rate. So 360 to 280. The base, instead of the tripod base is going to be our compact XG base. So that's the smaller base. I will say that for this model, I really do favor the tripod base because the stability for an ultrawide is really nice. I think it's the best in class display stability that we offer within that tripod base, so that when you move this monitor, it doesn't move at all. It just stays really nice, especially for a big display like this, and you want to adjust the panel, you want to tilt it, move it, kind of do any of this. It stays really nice and stable. The XG base, it's still metal, it's still premium, it's still really nice. It's going to be more compact, and some people might favor that, but you're going to not have as much base stability as you would with the tripod base. But again, that's going to be a point of reduction. And then the USB spec. So this one has the USB-C with 90-watt power delivery. The other one won't have the USB-C with 90-watt power delivery. That one also won't have the DP 2.1a. It'll have, I believe, DP 1.4 with DSC. So overall, 4 changes, right? Reduction slightly in the refresh rate, 360 to 280, a change to the base, a change to the USB spec, and then a change to the display connectivity spec from DP 2.1a to DP 1.4 with DSC. So the XG will also be available in that same time frame, so around mid to late March going into April. So you'll have 2 choices if you want this new pure RGB striped QD-OLED 3440 by 1440 1800R ultra wide. We're going to have 2 great options for you available, with the hero being, of course, this one with the PG34WCDN. Okay, let me go ahead and quickly see if there's any question right there on any of this. Let me see. Sorry, hold on. Any chance on the website, is there a way to label the monitors with the year that they came out so they don't end up buying old monitors again when I'm looking for the newest monitors? I'm not exactly sure what you mean. Any chance on the website there's a way to label a new monitor? So the model number pretty much always changes, so you can't ever buy like an old, I guess, old monitor, right? If you're talking about, it's that specific model name, right? So there's no way to buy an old monitor from that. But I think if you're saying that maybe we have a situation where the 2 monitors exist within the channel that could be similar, and you don't want to be looking at that. So I get, yeah, trying to have like a year designation. That's definitely something we can share with our product team. I think I kind of understand what you're saying. Maybe, or at least maybe having clarification maybe when the monitor was released, if that kind of makes sense, right? So yeah, that's good feedback. I appreciate that, and definitely see if we can discuss that with our team. Okay, let me go ahead and go from there. Let me go ahead and check here. No Dolby Vision as of right now. Yes, that could potentially change, but I don't perceive it being changed as of right now. Is there Dolby Vision support on this one? No Dolby Vision support on this monitor, right? I love the tripod based on mine and the ROG logo in red on my desk. Yeah, so level 0, hopefully you can help to confirm to that. Again, I know that it takes up a little bit more, but again, the stability of that base really is really nice. And I think especially for the premium users, when you get into like that 34 and the 32-inch form factor, having that stability and that feel is really nice, because you don't want to have the monitor feel like, oh, our monitor is going to move or is going to flex, right? It's a really premium product, and you don't want it to feel like it's not stable. And there are definitely some of those bases where I don't think that they work as well to ensure the stability of the product, if that makes sense. Of course, if you're using a monitor arm, then it's not an issue, and all of these do fully support the monitor arm, right? Okay. All right. So that is going to be, yeah, the PG34WCDN. So that is going to be another update that we have there in terms of OLED. So those are pretty much all of the ROG OLEDs. I'm going to quickly touch on 2 ProArt based OLEDs, and then we're going to round out displays with the ROG XREAL glasses. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring up the first one here in terms of the ProArt. So with ProArt, we've actually got a couple of cool, exciting updates here. So the first one is going to be here with the Kali control and the PA32UCDM-RK. So this one is not like a full update, I would say, because we technically already had this display available. This is essentially just like a variant enhancement that we will have to this model. Not to the same extent of like the Gem 3 that we had, but I would say for those of you that are interested in kind of being like creators, but you're also maybe gaming, then this could be an interesting option for you that you could consider. There are also going to be some specific creator-centric benefits on this model. So this is actually leveraging the same monitor, that panel tech that we had essentially in the PG32UCDM. Okay, so this is a QD-OLED 4K 240 hertz. But what are the changes in this one in the ProArt lineup? The first one is this is an ultra premium base and overall stand. So the entire body is actually, this is all metal. So it's a super premium build quality. It does change a little bit the level of ergonomic control. Like on our traditional monitors, we actually have 4-way ergonomic. This one doesn't have full 4-way, it's 3-way ergonomic, but it's a super premium based design. Of course, it's all fully integrated. This one actually also has Thunderbolt connectivity, where, of course, on our traditional gaming displays, you don't have Thunderbolt connectivity to be able to have device attachment or device-to-device monitor-to-monitor-based connection. The K designation, if you guys are wondering, K is always going to be for actually monitors that include calibrators included with the monitor. So this actually will come included with our brand new Cali control, which actually right now you can buy the ASUS Cali control. This is a $250 monitor control, but also a calibration device. It's really cool. And little pro tip, if you don't know, on all of the ROG gaming monitors that support Display Widget Center, we've already baked in Cali control support. So you don't have to just use this on a ProArt monitor. You can actually use this on your normal ROG gaming monitor if you've actually always wanted to be able to calibrate your monitor to a higher degree, or you want specific color parameters that you want to be able to tune for, you want to be able to check things. This is a really exciting option, and especially our software suite, which comes included with it, and our price point I think is outstanding at $250. Keep in mind, if you even have other companies' monitors, you can still use the Cali control. You just won't have the display control, but you could still use the calibrator functionality for that, right? But this will come with the Cali control, and then it will also come with the monitor hood. Again, 4K, 240 hertz, QD-OLED based offering with a Thunderbolt connectivity. The other big thing that's special about this display is also that this has actually what's called a hardware calibration IC. I won't go too much into this. Probably most of you guys on here are probably gamers, but a hardware IC has a benefit that if you calibrate a monitor, the data is stored on the inside of the monitor versus on the device. And that brings value because if you move from device to device, your actual color calibration results would change. So if I had the calibration results on my computer and then I had on my laptop, but I change the device or connect to a different device, I lose the calibration results because they're actually stored on that device. But when you store the calibration data inside the display, it maintains a much higher level of consistency because it's stored inside of the actual monitor. This actually requires a special hardware level IC, and we include that. Another really cool update that we did make is we actually include our full robust color calibration software suite. This is actually software that if you look at like a comparable option in the marketplace, it literally would be hundreds of dollars to include this similar type of color calibration software suite, but it comes included, no licensing, no subscription. It's actually just included with the monitor, and it really helps to enhance the value. There's some other really cool stuff that you can do there, such as like synchronization profiles. If you have like multiple ProArt monitors, you can actually use like a back-end web system where we can actually match the color profiles across all the monitors. So if you have a preset that you're using, you can just sync that across all your displays, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's going to be the PA32WCDN. The current model right this already goes for I think $1,900. So this one's going to go for a little bit more because it comes with the monitor and the Cali control already included within it. This should be available shortly for those that are interested. We will also have a 27-inch version of this monitor that will also be coming out, which actually I'm really excited about because if you guys know, I really love PPI. So when we talk about sharpness, 4K 27-inch, that is going to be the gold standard in terms of giving you really nice sharp display. It's notably sharper than a 32-inch 4K display. So I'm really excited about us offering this update here. Let me see if I have hopefully the page that I can bring up for this one. Let me see if we got it. Yep. Okay, so let me bring it up right here. I'll bring that up to you guys. So this is going to be the, oh, I didn't put in actually the model for this one. So let me actually put it in. I'll put it in for you guys. So this is going to be the ProArt OLED display 27-inch. So this one's also going to be brand new. Just announced this one at actually CES. And this is pretty much going to be the baby brother. So if you don't want to go all the way to 32 inches, you want to go to 27 inches, you will get the same thing. And this one's actually similar to the PG27WCDN, which is the ROG gaming variant. Again, the big benefit here is you get that really pretty refined metal all body design. So again, 27-inch QD-OLED, 240 hertz. This one also has Thunderbolt, USB power delivery, and all of the other same things. So you get the hardware calibration IC, Thunderbolt connectivity, the software calibration suite as well. This one doesn't have the hood or the Kali control, but you still get the hardware IC like I talked about. So this is essentially just a smaller variant of the PG32, excuse me, the PA32 UCDM, right? So if you essentially want to go with the 27-inch where you get that tighter PPI, you're good to go. And also one little tip for also for those that you might be using this with Macs, we have updated pretty much our ProArt ecosystem to be able to support that all of our monitors have Display Widget Center that's also compatible in OS X. So that means you can install the software on OS X. So if you want to be able to control things like brightness or color presets, you can just open up the software suite and you can use software to be able to control all your color presets and different settings, different tuning parameters. But you can do that without having to physically touch any of the OSD buttons on the monitor. And that's a great option, which I personally use on my ROG monitor in Windows. Because I just find it much more easy than physically touching any buttons. This one, I don't think I have pricing on. So let me just see if I have price on this one. I do have. This one actually will be $12.99, which I think is a fantastic price for this one. $12.99 when, again, you consider the Thunderbolt, the hardware calibration IC, that premium metal body design. I think all fantastic options. This one will also have Dolby Vision certification support as well. And I believe, if I remember correctly, we're the only vendor in the industry that's actually allowing for a customizable HDR profile system as well, along with multiple profiles on this one. So this is a pretty awesome update that we have for this guy. And one other update that I've got on the ProArt side, and this one actually is, I think, my most exciting option for the ProArt monitor side, is going to be the ProArt OLED PA279CDV. So this one, I don't have a product page that I can even show you yet for it. But this is normally in the past, most of our ProArt OLED monitors have been very expensive. Like when we first launched them, you were generally looking at a price point of, for most of ours, being like $2,500, $2,500, $3,000 for these displays. So they were quite a bit more expensive. So this one, we're actually going to be looking at a very aggressive price point to be able to offer OLED creators essentially an entry option to get into a ProArt OLED based display. And I think at a really compelling price point. So I think right now the tentative price projection for this model is supposed to be $799, I believe. $799 is going to be the projected price point. And let me go ahead and show it to you right here. And this is going to be, again, the ProArt 279CDV. So the specs on this one actually are really, really nice. So this is going to be a 4K 120 hertz space panel. It actually also, I know a lot of people really like gloss, but this actually has our new Lux Pixel coating. This is the same Lux Pixel coating that we actually use on our 5K, our new 4K, our 6K, and our new 8K monitors, and it's absolutely stunning. At CES, everybody that even said that they only like gloss had looked at this and they thought that the picture was absolutely fantastic, but they also super appreciated that there wasn't any type of shimmer, there wasn't any type of reflections. I absolutely love this display. And again, I think for the price point of that $799 to have the outstanding factory calibration that we do for the ProArt based displays, the robust options that we have for things like picture and picture by picture support. This also has daisy chaining, which is really cool. Normally you don't see this in most displays, but we do this in a lot of ProArt monitors. That means you can connect the monitor to another monitor directly from the monitor. You don't actually have to run the cable back to your system and connect it to the graphics card. So if you wanted to have two of these displays set up, you could actually connect one cable to another cable, but you don't actually have to use Thunderbolt, right? You can actually just use DP to be able to do that. So there's daisy chaining support to be able to offer that. So I love that this monitor has daisy chain in there. And again, I think at this price point, again, the overall, the quality of the tuning, the uniformity performance, right? That higher standard refresh, right? The 4K, the Lux Pixel, the four-way ergonomic adjustment, all of those. I think at $799, this is going to be an outstanding option for people that have wanted to get into ProArt, maybe just for a general high-quality based display, or if you're into videography, photography, animation, 3D modeling, things like that, and you've also wanted to be able to get into it. I think this is a really exciting update. So we, I think, have an amazing lineup that we have within the ProArt ecosystem. When you take a look at, we're offering now that 27-inch. Then we've got those multiple 32s. We have even some other options that we've got new SDI options, tons of stuff within the ProArt ecosystem. So some really good updates on that end. Let me go ahead and take a look right here. No URL so I don't have the URL yet for that one. It's not up yet for the CDV. Hopefully it'll be up in not too distant future for that model. But yes, right now tentatively the price point should be $799 for that model. Yeah. Looks very stylish. Yeah, I think that's the thing. A lot of people always just love the really refined styling for the ProArt displays. And keep in mind, there's even some really nice little things, like even like the USB connectivity. All ProArt monitors, we always try to put a lot of ports on them. I love, actually, we usually do not only some rear type A ports, but even there's usually like 2 ports that are directly underneath the portion of the bezel. So like if this is your monitor, like right under there, there's like a type A and there's like a type C. So if I want to quickly be able to attach like a dongle or adapter or something like that, I can do that without having to kind of figure out where all my other connections are at. So there's a lot of really just nice elements that we always try to put in that focus again of creating a ProArt display. We treat it as a tool, right, for the user. So I'm definitely a big fan of those options right there. Okay. Let me see. The wife could use a new ProArt display. $799 is a great price point. Yeah, I would definitely agree. And keep in mind that we have, you know, for other ones, we recently updated the whole CDV series. So there was new monitors that we even released actually a new 1920 by 1200 option, which is great as a secondary monitor option for a lot of people, especially if you want to do coding, you want that nice tall vertical resolution. The C series lineup, which that monitor, if you notice, the PA279CDV, that's part of our ProArt C series. The C series is always kind of like what I would say is our sweet spot for a lot of people that want high quality, but they don't want to break the bank in terms of the budget, right? That generally has been, and of course it's only been LCD, but we generally have had MSRPs usually from around like the low 200s to about $500-ish, right? So we have updates that we actually just completed not that long ago for 1900 by 1200, 1440p, 4K, and now this new option. And then of course, even the JCV, which is our 5K option, which comes in at $799. That's a compelling option, right? It's like, do you want 5K resolution, right? The ProArt that, and keep in mind that LCDs, we also, and this is new, just as a soft update for you guys, in November we did this retroactively. So any new monitor that, even if it was previously in our lineup, on the ProArt lineup, it's LCD based, but all of the ProArt LCDs carry now a 5-year warranty, unquestionably the best in the industry. We already had best in class for 3 years across the board, where there's some competitors, I'll call them out. LG, you could buy an LG UltraSharp. There's a lot of LG UltraSharps. You can pay $1,200 for that monitor, and it's a 1-year warranty. Every ProArt monitor, and actually every ASUS monitor, Tough Gaming, ROG Strix, right, ProArt, all have 3-year warranties, but ProArt LCDs now carry a 5-year warranty for US. So really compelling option to be able to offer that. Okay. Yeah, definitely. I would say medical coding. Yeah, that's nice to have that vertical resolution, right? That vertical resolution is really cool, right? All right. So let me go ahead. I think that was all of the monitors. I have some really just, these ones are going to be super quick, and we're getting close to kind of wrapping most of it up here. But I've got a couple of just little soft updates that I want to touch on here on portable displays, because I always do touch on these guys. So let me go ahead and just show a couple of these updates for you guys. So I've got this guy here. This is going to be a new update to our dual monitors. So this is going to be the yeah, this is going to be the MB14 FCD. So you guys might be aware that we already had the MQ149CD. So that was already a dual display that we already had available. So let me just kind of show you guys here, and I'll show you kind of the difference here. So this monitor we already released, and it's available right now. It's actually a fantastic monitor. I love using it, especially when I travel. So this is actually a really cool, this is a dual 14-inch OLED that actually has that nice vertical resolution. So it's a 1920 by 1200, 2 of them together side by side, premium nice metal body, integrated kickstand. It also has an optional support that you can actually use our Zen stand, or actually any threaded kind of tripod mount, to be able to use this as a secondary kind of a display, whether it's in your home or on the go. Really, really cool option. Has USB-C and also and HDMI connectivity on there. You can do different inputs. You can have mirrored inputs. You can do a lot of different stuff on this. This one's already been available. Great option, $599. But we had some people who was like, hey, we'd love to see kind of a similar thing, maybe a little bit lower price, also maybe a little bit higher brightness as well. So we have now an LCD-based variant that we're actually going to be releasing here, and I think I have the image for it. Hopefully it's going to be over here somewhere. Let me see if it's here. Do we have it over here? Oh, I didn't even talk about the glasses yet. I'm going to get to the glasses. Here we go. Yeah. So this is going to be right here. As you see, this is going to be the ZenScreen Duo, the MB14FCD. And so with this guy, this is going to be a pretty cool option. Essentially, it's dual 14-inch IPS-based displays. Right, again, you have that similar flexibility to be able to mirror, the extend, the split, the independent-based options, that side-by-side positioning, that integrated actually kickstand-based support. Really solid in terms of the overall color performance. It's a 100% sRGB-based display. So again, if you're looking for something to be able to kind of give you more flexibility, whether it's going to be at home or on the go, this could be a great addition to what you might be considering with the again, this is going to be the MB14FCD. So that's going to be the Duo. So again, we have two versions of Duo displays. One's going to be essentially an IPS-based 14-inch, and then the other one's going to be a 14-inch OLED-based offering, right? Which is already available, okay? Next one that we're going to have here is going to be the MB16NCG, okay? And this one, again, I think this is a great just option here to be able to introduce for people that want to be able to have a nice high quality display when they're traveling, or maybe just a secondary display setup. Maybe they're more limited in terms of kind of the number of displays that they can have in their, you know, their environment that they have. So this is going to be a 16-inch display and 2560 by 1600. So again, nice to have that little bit of that vertical increase, right? So instead of 2560 by 1440, it's a 2560 by 1600 IPS, higher than standard refresh rate, 155 hertz, which is nice, especially if you're matching that up with a laptop that has higher than standard refresh rate, has USB-C pass-through power, which is nice to be able to maximize charging and functionality of that. I think the pass-through power is 65 watts, if I remember correctly. Has also our integrated tripod mounting based design, and you have both USB-C and mini HDMI connectivity on here. I think this is going to be a great addition to our lineup. Again, this is also going to be 100% sRGB. So this is going to be a nice update to this lineup here. And again, that's going to be the ZenScreen MB16NCG. Do I have timeline for this one? Let me check here. The MB also, that's going to be $240. Release should probably be in April. I think very, very reasonable in terms of the time frame. And then the dual LCD that we talked about, the dual LCD is going to probably be coming in at $349. So that's going to be quite a bit cheaper than the $599 that we have for the dual OLED, right? So again, two 14-inch OLED, right, is $599. And then this one for the dual LCD, right, is going to be $349. But the NCG, which is again 2560 by 1600, 155 hertz, that's going to be $240. And again, April timeframe release. And then got one last one here, which should be this guy, which should be the MB16FC. And let me bring this one up here. So one other one here. This is again for the guys that love the vertical resolution, right? I'm all about that vertical resolution. I love the vertical resolution. This one also, I think, is going to be sub 250. I think it's like 240 or something like that is our planned MSRP. So this is 1920 by 1200 IPS, pass-through power, not a high refresh rate, just standard 60 hertz in terms of the refresh rate. But again, for just a secondary, nice, easy display to be able to set up by secondary system, or just have it by your other laptop, or kind of just basic functionality. Great option that we're going to have here. Good color accuracy. And again, a lot of the other kind of more basic brands that might sometimes only have like a 1-year warranty. Again, also all of our portable monitors also have that same extended kind of warranty experience as well. So 3 new portable display options that we have there. So I'm going to go into the glasses here really quick. Do they also have a built-in battery? No, for these models, they would have like pass-through power, so they can actually be powered directly from like the device you're connecting. We do have models that actually have a fully integrated battery. So we actually have a couple that actually have like 7800 milliamp batteries built into them. So if you want like a truly kind of quote unquote, where you don't have to power it with something else, you just literally connect the display signal. We do have portable monitors that have a fully integrated battery, right? They get a little bit thicker, not too much thicker. Actually, I have one of the ones that has a fully integrated battery. I've used it for a long time. That's a 17-inch. Which I love, and it's actually also 240 hertz IPS, and it has even speakers. I love that model. It's been absolutely fantastic, especially if you want like for portable gaming, a little bit more immersion, things like that. I really like using that. But yes, we have portable monitors that have a fully built-in battery if that's your vibe and you want to go that route. Okay, all right. So let me go ahead and bring up the Next, well, I think pretty much the last display that we have here, which is going to be the XREAL R1, so the ROG XREAL R1 based glasses. So these are going to be really, really cool, exciting update that we have. Some cool stuff that we're doing here. Let me go ahead and bring this one up. There's a couple of questions that I think came up though, so let me quickly see here. Do you have any updates on the AQWMG? It wasn't actually expected to launch last year. Again, sometimes this is just a lot of rumor and conjecture that people kind of present. We had always communicated that the launch was actually going to be, at least for the US, it was going to be in 2026. It was going to be in the beginning. And so that's, yeah, that's actually what we've communicated, not only our PCDIY community, but for people that have actually contacted us. So yes, and that's actually the same for both the Dash W. So we've already confirmed, again, Dash W is going to be released this year. This should actually probably be late this month for the Dash W. For the WMG will probably be a little bit later. So after the actual release for the Dash W. So the Dash W will be first, and then the WMG. I'll see if I can get a little bit more specific release date, but right now I think we just have it set as Q1 for the release target for that model. Okay. Love the ASUS iCare monitor. Yeah, I would 100%. I think it's a great feature in that regard. So let's go ahead and talk about these glasses. And I guess that would be a question for anybody that's checking out the stream, is how many of you actually have utilized any type of like smart glasses or anything along those lines? Is that something that you guys have used? Are you excited by this type of product? Is this something that you think you guys are going to find that's kind of compelling or interesting? So this is a pretty exciting update that we have here. So these are going to be the world's first based gaming glasses, AR glasses, right, that are going to be offering 240 hertz refresh rate. So traditionally, when the max in the industry you've seen is 120 hertz, I can definitely tell you when I was trying it out, I could see that difference between the 120 and the 240. It also, I think, helps to reduce eye strain and just make things a more enjoyable experience. The other really cool element here is actually going to be the ROG control dock. So historically with these type of glasses, while you've been able to connect them to something like, let's say like an ROG handheld, or let's say a laptop, or, you know, of course, mobile phones or things along those lines, because of the way that they're matrix into reading out the GPU, there's also a spatialization chip that's actually built into the eyewear. You've been limited, that you haven't been able to use them like on a really nice high performance PC type system that have discrete GPUs. This hasn't been possible, and that's actually what really comes in cool with the actual ROG control dock, is you actually have DP and HDMI connectivity. This will allow you to not only switch your inputs quickly, but it also implements actually a specialized what we call anchored mode, because normally with these type of glasses, they will move with you essentially when you pan over. But when you're gaming, especially like in PC gaming, you sometimes will have a fixed field of view where you don't want things to kind of get out of frame or kind of change up. So this anchored mode, along with the actual mapping to be able to go ahead and use the HDMI or the DP out from your desktop system to this actual dock, will actually allow you to essentially use this for an ultra large immersive experience, right? That you just can't have when you talk about a traditional monitor, right? So if you want to be able to go up to this much larger type of display, right, where they're talking about like 100 inches, 120 inches plus, right, you would be able to achieve on this. There is integrated speakers in here to be able to provide you audio. There's actually also chromatic based coding, which allows you to also be able to have kind of like clarity if you want to be able to kind of like still be wearing these glasses, but then I want to shift away and I want to be able to see through and be able to, you know, take a sip of water or something like that. That's also kind of built in. Quite comfortable and lightweight. At 91 grams, it doesn't feel super heavy, so you can be wearing these for an extended period of time. I think these are going to be a really exciting update that really genuinely provide, I think, for the first time, a high quality, you know, AR glass type of technology, but for core PC gaming experience, which I think is really cool to be able to extend the type of immersion. You know, I remember trying out Forza on this, and Forza was really, really cool to be able to try on this. And I think for environments that are large and open and immersive that you want to be able to experience, I think this is where there's a definite interesting opportunity where having something like this alongside your other kind of high quality display, it's cool. And then plus having that flexibility that you still can travel with these and use these with other devices without actually having to use the control dock. So you can like keep the control dock at home, right, when you want to be able to have that control flexibility, but you can just bundle these in, and then you could still have these connected to something like your ROG Ally directly with nothing else, right, or your phone or your laptop, and be able to get that. That's also, I think, a pretty cool and compelling experience as well. So these are going to be the ROG R1 based glasses. Time frame still has not been finalized. We also don't have a finalized MSRP for these, so I don't have a price to be able to disclose for you guys on that side, but they will be coming, like I said, in the not too distant future. I would probably estimate, I'm thinking probably Q2 timeframe is probably when you're probably going to see these in terms of that, but we'll definitely keep you apprised in terms of updates for overall availability. So again, have any of you guys actually tried out any type of AR glasses? What's your thoughts on this? Do you think this is something that you're excited about maybe trying from a gaming perspective? I think these are going to be a great addition to what we're going to be offering in terms of our lineup for display technologies. So that is going to be the ROG R1. And rounding things out, let's see what we have left here. I've got pretty much, I think, mini PCs are the last item. So I want to touch on our new mini PCs. So we've got a GR70, the NUC 16, and the PN55. And that's pretty much going to wrap up most of our stream. If we have any questions, I'll leave open a little bit for kind of questions if we've got any questions that I didn't get to, but I've tried to kind of get to most of those as they've kind of come in. So let me go ahead and bring up the GR70 first. So this is going to be kind of like an analog to the ROG NeoCore that we previously had. The ROG NeoCore was a 3.5 liter gaming PC, offered really impressive performance with Arrow Lake HX and GPUs from a 5060 all the way to 5080. With the with the GR70, GR70 is going to be offering same liter form factor, so 3.5 liter form factor design, but the big update is going to be here is that we're going to be leveraging the latest generation of AMD's Ryzen 9000 series CPUs. So on this side, you're going to be able to have something like the 9955 HX3D series along with a mobile GeForce RTX 5070 base graphics card, which is going to make for a super impressive level of performance on this unit. Still comes with the outstanding specialized thermal design on here to be able to keep it cool and quiet and performant. You have Wi-Fi 7, 2.5 gigabit networking, 40 gigabit LAN. You can run up to 5 displays on this unit. It has dual PCIe, NVMe, Gen 4 M.2 SSD support. It can run actually up to 128 gigabytes of DDR5 SODIMM based memory. The prepackaged configured units, I think, are going to be either 16 or 32 gigabytes. And then I think there's a 1 or 2 terabyte for the storage configuration option. Again, there'll be kind of different tiers. The entry model will have the 5060. The higher end model will have the 5070. And then, like I said, they'll be tiering between the memory and the density storage configuration and also a CPU based configuration model. But again, you know, it's impossible to build a 3.5 liter system. So to be able to have something this compact, this performant, but also really easy to still be able to pop off the panel and be able to upgrade the storage, be able to upgrade the memory, be able to have maybe dual boot environments, right? With some of the really cool releases that are coming out with things like Steam OS, and maybe you want to have Windows and you want to have Steam OS, or maybe you want to have a Linux distribution and maybe you want a Windows distribution. Really cool options, robust UEFI firmware that we have available as always. And unlike many other mini PC competitors, there are competitors, you know, Minis Forum, B-Link, Geekum, other guys that are out there. Some of them don't even offer any type of software management for things like the performance tuning attributes in Windows or fan control functionality. You have to go into the firmware environment, which is also quite dated. We have a full, robust UEFI graphical firmware with far more features and comprehensive management options. We also offer class-leading warranty support. All of our mini PCs are 3-year warranties. There's some vendors that offer only a 1-year warranty. Some actually have very limited return policies. You have to return the unit within a 7-day window, or you have to ship the unit internationally for warranty service. There can be kind of more variability. Those aren't going to be things that you have to kind of deal with on our side of the fence. But I think this is a great addition. And again, here you can see the connectivity. Again, even within being 3.5 liter, you get that USB-C right there, 2 Type-A ports, headphone jack, which we actually have an improved audio circuit design for improved analog level audio out. 4 Type-A ports that are 10 gigabits, that 2.5 gig, that 40 gig, and then you can see, of course, your dual DP, and then dual HDMI, and then, of course, your power delivery. So overall, I think a very cool update that we have right there. So overall, I think a great addition to our lineup on this side of the fence. So we're going to go to the PN55, which is going to be a less performant version, but still really capable AMD mini PC solution. But if you don't need that discrete GPU and you're still just looking for maybe a solid graphics gaming experience for maybe more casual gaming, older titles, or you're just looking for great on-die multimedia performance, this is going to be a fantastic option for you as well. So before I kind of move to that model, let me quickly check and see if there's any questions on that side. Do you know if the T500 ATX will be available? So that's actually on the SPG side of the fence. That's the tough gaming chassis. We don't cover anything here from the SPG side of the fence, but no, that's a custom chassis. It's not going to be sold separately. That would be a fully self-contained unit right there, right? So Top 3 Entertainment says, tried these at the ASUS CES suite. Liked how they can set the screen to lock in the position or follow your head movement. And I also like how you can set the screen size as well. So I think he's referring to the ROG R1 glasses. So really cool to be able to have that hands-on real-world feedback. I think if you guys check out, I don't know, Top 3, if you actually did like a little bit of a tour or showcase, but you guys can definitely check out his channel along with other creators. I know DePoets was here a little bit earlier, where they got, you know, CS tour suites for people that had hands-on impressions of some of the things that we're talking about, as well as we got other content that we've done here on our own channel, which can tie into some of those items as well, right? Where are the headphones? Yeah, I can talk about the Catharas if you want. The Catharas, I'm really excited about that. I just didn't know if I was going to have enough time to pack in everything right there. But yeah, we can definitely kind of touch on those in a little bit, right? So give me 1 second right here, and we'll get into that. So that's the GR70. So next, we're going to go ahead and touch on the PN55. So the PN55 is a follow-up to the PN54, which we actually released towards the end of last year. And so this is actually going to be based off of the new AMD Gorgon Point. So an update to essentially their prior generation base unit. So really impressive, though, in terms of the overall performance and feature set. You know, this unit is going to give you the Ryzen AI 400 series processor, the Radeon 800M graphics core, some solid actually NPU performance and graphics gameplay performance. You even have support for things like FSR. You have H.64, H.65, AV1 encode and decode that's going to be built on die there, 4K support. You got 40 gigabit connectivity. You actually have biometrics supported on here to be able to quickly log in. There's a Copilot button, speaker, and microphone as well that's also built in there if you want to be able to leverage those features built in within Windows or other supporting applications. I love that this model actually has dual 2.5 gig connectivity on it, which is really, really, really cool. It also has a toolless-based design to allow you to quickly just open up the unit, be able to get in, to be able to access the dual PCI Express NVMe Gen 4 M.2 SSD slots, and also for memory density to support this unit can actually support up to 128 gigabytes of DDR5 SODIMM-based memory. So a lot of performance. You know, you're talking up to a 16-thread part packed in there with, of course, modern graphics-based core and architecture. So this can offer really solid desktop-level compute performance, right? For general daily diving, casual gaming, emulation, right? Media engine, NAS functionality, especially with that dual LAN functionality. A lot of really cool stuff that is baked into this unit that makes it actually quite robust. A sleeper feature that I also really love within this unit is going to be the connectivity for the power delivery. So with most traditional mini PCs, you actually have to use the DC in, essentially your AC adapter, your external power source. But this actually supports USB PD input. So you can actually power this unit if, let's say, you pair this up with something like a ProArt monitor or one of our monitors that has high wattage PD power delivery. You could actually have one single cable that can provide the power and the display signal at the same time. And you could just like back mount this and you can have a super clean performance system that's super compact and good to go. And you don't actually even have to carry or utilize the external AC adapter. Now, keep in mind, you're going to reduce the performance of the unit a little bit. I would say probably nominally somewhere in the range of about like 10%, but in real world performance, you're never going to see this. You would only see this like if you were running a benchmark and you could see the difference between this Cinebench score and this Cinebench score, something along those lines. But for real world workflow and usage, you would still have more than enough performance on tap to be able to have a great experience. So I really love this unit. I also think the PN54, which will be a little bit cheaper, still pretty much gives you everything that we talked about. The power, the performance, the GPU, everything. It's just the prior generation that's not refreshed over, but that is still outstanding. It's still 16 threads. The IDs is similar, the IOs the similar. You get the dual LAN, the dual PCI Express Gen 4 M.2 SSD support. Everything is the same. This is just a little bit of a faster variant that's going to be available. And we actually even have a secondary low-cost version where we remove things like the biometric, the Copilot functionality, the speaker, things like that with the S1. And it's also a slightly lower CPU-based spec, but still really performant and really solid. So kind of the tier would be the PN54 S1, the PN54 standard, and then we have the PN55 that would be at the top. And then, of course, if you need the most performance, then you go over to the GR70, right, which also has the discrete GPU. So that is going to be, the PN55. And we're going to wrap it up here with the NeoCore 16 Pro. And then because somebody did ask about the Catharas, I'm going to touch on the Catharas because I absolutely am a huge audio guy and I love them. And then we'll kind of close things up. But let me go ahead and quickly see if there's any questions that came up there on those mini PCs. If not, we're going to talk about the NeoCore 16 Pro, and we'll go from there. Doesn't look like there was a question there. Okay, perfect. So we're going to go to the NeoCore 16. So this is going to be our new flagship series offering, of course, within the mini PC lineup. So as you guys know, the NeoCore 15 series, right, we previously had in the prior generation. And if you guys actually go back to the prior gen, the NeoCore 14 series, we had the NeoCore 14 Pro AI. And that model was really exciting because that unit actually utilized Lunar Lake. Lunar Lake was a fully integrated package design from Intel, which offered outstanding performance and efficiency, and along with a really robust graphics core. When Arrow Lake came about, they focused on prioritizing, of course, CPU performance, but there were some changes based on Lunar Lake. Now with Panther Lake, you kind of actually get the combination of both of these things, where you get even improved performance and a really robust graphics core. So this unit actually is going to be really exciting because the performance that we're going to be offering within the NeoCore 16 is actually quite compelling, because this will actually support even the highest performing version that you're going to only generally see like in certain laptop configurations, which would be the B390 GPU core, which would actually be up to, I think, the 12-core GPU configuration. When you pair this with that, we'll actually have two versions on the NeoCore 16. There'll be one model that will actually have the ultra-fast LPDDR5X memory, which actually goes all the way up to 9600 MT, or you could have the actual socketable, upgradable actually DDR5 memory, which I don't know the final specification memory support. If it follows the prior generation, it should be 6400 MT, which is technically a CSO DIMM. It's actually an overclocked frequency support. If not, it'll be the nominal 5600 MT target. Both are still very fast. And that really is more for if you really want to go to larger density configurations like 128 gigabyte. For the LPDDR5X, right, you're going to have, I think that there's three configurations, 32, 64, and a 96, right? So, I don't know what the final launch confirmation versions will be, but it should be up to, again, that 96 going up to 9600 MT for that ultra high frequency, because that gives the absolute most bandwidth and most performance available to the GPU cores, not only for, of course, gaming purposes, but also for compute purposes that are going to be on that GPU. But this unit is going to be, again, very compelling because you get a very high performance based GPU design. You get a high performance CPU architecture, which is super efficient. You have dual LAN support. We're also in a development stage. I can't give you a guarantee that it will see finalization, but we're actually also developing a potential add-in hat, kind of like a top-in accessory, that if you want to be able to move from dual 2.5 gigabit networking that's offered on this model to be able to actually have 10 gigabit connectivity, we're actually going to be evaluating right now, developing essentially an add-on hat that would give you 10G support for this model as well. So I'm very excited about that. And you'll also notice that I'm not talking about a Pro and Pro Plus model. The prior generation, we had a 4x4 and a 5x4 config. The 5x4 config was the Pro Plus, and the 4x4 config was the Pro. With the Pro Plus, we essentially prioritized a little bit larger PCB for better power delivery and enhanced thermal solution design to allow us to essentially have a higher wattage performance, so 65 watt power envelope, right? And so here, that's what we're focusing on. It's essentially a simplification of offering one option, just the Pro, but it's the 5x4 configuration. So leveraging essentially the benefits of the Pro Plus, but keeping the simplicity of only offering one SKU, but with that peak performance of what we offered with the Pro Plus. So that is what you will be getting here. Some other cool benefits is this will also still be really one of the only units, just like in the prior generation, that it doesn't have just PCI Express Gen 4. It has PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 SSD support. So you've got dual 2.5 gig. You've got the latest generation Wi-Fi 7, which is even faster than the prior generation Wi-Fi 7 chipset used in the prior gen model. You have PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 SSD, a secondary PCI Express Gen 4 M.2 SSD, and Thunderbolt connectivity, and plus tons of other really cool things that we do exclusive to the NeoCore series, which even include things like remote control and operation, out-of-band management options, which will be available, and a lot of other cool things, even like headless operation support if you want to be able to put this in like a home lab situation or something like that. So I'm a big fan of always our NeoCore series product, really cool addition. So we will have the NeoCore 16 Pro available. So that wraps out the updates from there. So GR70, PN55, and then the NeoCore 16 Pro. So somebody asked about the Catharas. So let's go ahead and bring up the ROG Cathara. And this is actually a really exciting update. So this is one that I think I'm personally excited about, because I actually helped to, I think, spearhead the team to have a discussion and collaboration with one of the most respected, really industry kind of companies out there when it comes to audiophile grade planar magnetic headphones with hi-fi, which also I think has a very close relationship with ASUS, from that they're both Taiwanese corporations, right? So they're both, really focusing on innovation, quality, and performance. And that's really what the Cathara is about, is taking the years of experience that Hi-Fi Menace has, making some of the absolute best planar magnetic headphones on the market, which, if you're not familiar, planar magnetic headphones, the way that they differ is quite quite a bit compared to a traditional kind of driver-based design that you have within a normal type of headphone, which can still offer you good detail, bass performance, soundstage, and detailing. But planar magnetics, I think, have really been seen as kind of right now offering the gold standard when it comes to clarity, detail, soundstage, and openness. And so, especially in that regard, this is the exciting area that we want to bring this type of technology into the gaming space, be able to offer, I think, our tuning insights, but also be able to make a headphone that was really well suited to the connectivity demands for users in the gaming space. Traditional planar magnetic headphones, some of them can actually be quite heavy. We're talking about 700, 800, 900, 1,000-gram headphones, which, to be honest, after like an hour and a half, 2 hours, you're not going to want to wear like a 900-gram headphone. It's just so heavy. It is not going to be something that's comfortable. So a key thing, first and foremost, was making sure that the weight was really well balanced, that you could want to wear it for an extended period of time. The second one was being able to have a high quality microphone, right? Because normally in a standard headphone, you don't have a microphone. So wanted to be able to have that. So we went with a very high quality MEMS based full band mic. Most bands are not full band. So in terms of their frequency performance, this allows for much better tonality and depth, and even that kind of bass extension that sometimes you don't normally get within a microphone being present there. But of course, it's fully detachable. And then another key part was actually going to be the connectivity experience. So we spent a lot of time to be able to evaluate how we could make sure to be able to offer a wide range of connectivity for users. So traditionally, when you're talking about on the PC experience, the PC user is going to be using maybe a 3.5 millimeter connection. In more audiophile circles, they might be using things like balanced connections or 6.3 millimeter based connections. But then also many users are moving over to be able to want to have a full digital based connectivity. So that means USB-C, because maybe I want to be able to connect that to something that doesn't have a headphone jack. So I want to use it on an RGL, or maybe I want to use it on my phone or a laptop or even on a desktop. So we actually had to develop a specialized precise DAC and then a USB-C cabling system and a modular based output design that gave us the flexibility to be able to drive high performance, good efficiency, which is actually going to be challenging for planar magnetics, and be able to have all of these different types of connections be available to you. And so the really cool thing with those type of connections is you have different types of options. And you can see that we've also spent time to be able to optimize the single paths at how we actually provide the signal. You can actually see right here how we've got the audio signal here, got the mic signal, because you actually want to be able to create separation and not be able to actually affect things. But the compatibility here is the cool part in terms of all the connection options. So you can see that we've got 3.5 millimeter included. You got 4.4 millimeter included, which is a balanced connection, which if you've never heard balanced audio, it's great. Like I have a high quality DAP player that has a balanced connection, and also my DAC and amp that has a balanced connection. It really helps to open up, I think, soundstage in the mid-range and depth of kind of sound, which is really nice, but you have to have hardware that supports it. 6.3 millimeter, really nice quality cables that are included right there. And then you can also see the USB-C to dual 3.5 millimeter adapter. So we take that in, and now we have a native USB-C connection that you can plug into any device. So you add into that also having 2 sets of ear cups, which, if you guys know, on ROG headphones, we've always had these kind of dual type of ear cups. Generally have a more isolated ear cup, which is really soft, really kind of enveloping to maximize isolation and sound. But then you also sometimes want one that's maybe a little bit more breathable, that's more cooling fabric oriented, which we've also designed. Sometimes people get hot ears, right? So this is nice. Although I will say with planners, because they also have more space because it's entirely flat on the inside versus sometimes having to have a driver which kind of eats into more physical space, there's a bit more breathing room, which is also nice, and that can be beneficial. So the Catharas, I'm really excited about this. This is going to be alongside our Delta 2s, like our flagship level headphones, still serving kind of a little bit different focus, right? If you want a true wireless based product that has things like dual flow connectivity, where I can have Bluetooth and 2.4 simultaneously connected, and I want a full wireless experience and still really good sound, The Delta 2s are a fantastic option, and I still love them. This is not replacing them. This is to supplement that and give you another option, which would even be for more premium audio experience, right? Where you really benefit, I think, having something that sounds great for music, movies, and games, and have that robust connection experience that's available. So the Catharas are going to be really exciting. You'll start to see more finalized information as we move into February, and I think be looking to probably have a release in that mid to late March kind of time frame for that. I don't have a finalized MSRP for this model, but I think it should be very exciting. The price point that we're actually going to be targeting compared to traditionally where some planar magnetics can easily start to get into, you know, $600, $700, $800, $900 in terms of kind of their corresponding price bands, and won't offer, I think, all this flexibility. There's also another update that we have within this with the open Cetras, which I think are another really nice update that we have here for CES. Speaking of audio, which I really love these. So I am somebody that I don't mind in-ears, and we actually have our ROG Strix True Wireless, which are in-ears. But I think that probably anybody that's used in-ears, for one, it can actually be fatiguing over time, and it is recommended that you do want to take breaks. You don't always want to be blasting high-level output to your ear canals, right? Which is a benefit of more traditional headphones. This type of design is an open design, so it's actually not as anywhere fatiguing, and it still allows you to have kind of ambient noise handling. But we actually have a specialized large actually diameter driver. So I think it's a 14.2 diameter driving diamond-like carbon driver, which actually allows for really nice bass performance, which is also sometimes a little bit more of a struggle with these kind of open ear designs. But I think the really cool part here is this kind of fully self-contained package design, where this unit, it has all of the items included in there. And the cool part is actually the 2.4 gigahertz adapter uses the same dual flow technology that we have in the RD Delta 2 and the Stretcher wirelesses. So that means you can actually have your phone connected, and you can also have the 2.4 connected at the same time. So you can take a call while you're gaming and you not have to break that experience, but you still maintain that ultra low latency, that higher bandwidth that higher bandwidth that's afforded from the 2.4. We also have a quad mic design for really nice audio pickup quality, so that you could have that from a gaming based experience or again from the calls, and also integrated with our AI noise canceling chip technology, which actually works quite well to be able to filter out things like keyboard sounds or fan humming or different type of things like that. Maybe your dog barking in the background, different scenarios along those lines. So I think those are some really welcome updates that we have there. And we also did even have some other really cool updates on the peripheral lineup. We've gone a little bit over in terms of some of the time, but some really great things that we have. A new ROG Azoth HE based keyboard update. We have our new ROG Morph keyboard update as well, and we'll definitely look to probably cover those in the not too distant future on the channel, probably a little bit maybe closer to the release as well. So let me see right here. Is this looking at the Cathara made me instantly think of the high-end Hensheimer from a long time ago. Love that the mic has 20 to 20. Yeah, because it's a full spectrum based microphone, right? And again, if you actually research some of the information regarding MEMS in terms of the microphone design, is quite compelling in that regard. So I think a really great addition that we have on it. So really solid in that regard. So overall, guys, that pretty much wraps up ASUS CES 2026. So as always, you can kind of see that we're busy. There's a lot to come. And this is just the start of the year. Like always, what we're going to be happy to reintroduce the PCDIY stream coming back now on a weekly basis, where you can expect to continue to see exciting new updates that we have. Also, remember, this year is our 20th anniversary. So, we kicked off kind of the 20th anniversary with the launch of some of the cool things at CES, but also, of course, with the ROG Matrix space. But we're not done. We've got more exciting things that are going to be coming, not only with different activations and opportunities, maybe different events that are going to be sprinkled throughout the year. So there's a lot more to come this year to be able to celebrate, I think, all of the awesomeness that ASUS has done with ROG over the last 20 years. Very near and dear to me, and I know very near and dear to a lot of you in the community. And I thank you guys for being with us. Whether you've bought one ROG product or if you've bought 20, we wouldn't be where we are without our amazing community and our users. So great to be able to have you guys as part of that Team ROG ecosystem, and just be able to kind of talk about some of the really cool stuff that we're going to be doing. So rest assured, when new stuff comes out, we're going to be touching it here on the stream. As always, we're also going to be looking to bring back the PCDIY Builder Spotlight to be able to talk about your guys' builds as you guys complete them, whether it's a build for the first time or whether it's for the last time or whatnot. To round things out, I just want to quickly show off the Glacial here because I got it and it looks so cool. And we'll close out the stream there. I'll also give the opportunity if anybody has any quick questions on anything that I missed out on or that they wanted to ask, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat there. I want to get my little power adapter here for the motherboard so I can light up the display. But for some of those that were lucky enough to be able to go to CES, you did get to see this guy. So this is the new flagship, the Glacial. And one of the really cool things that we have with, of course, this new X870 series, and I guess I can bring up some images right here to be able to touch on this, is with this new series of motherboards, one of the really cool things that I'm really going to love that we've introduced here is that we now have a new 64 megabyte ROM. And part of the value of having a new 64 megabyte ROM file, 64 megabyte ROM on our motherboards is going to be that we have now the Wi-Fi driver is pre-installed in the actual ROM. So that means when you complete your actual builds, it just helps us streamline the experience, right? To make things faster, simpler, and easier, right? So you'll actually see, here's an example of also another cool benefit that we're going to have with the 64 megabyte ROMs. We've got to a brand new UEFI interface. This is the first time in more than 10 years where we've done an entire redesign for the actual UEFI. Again, you can find out way more about this if you check out my first look preview that we did on the ASUS North American YouTube channel, which dives into this. We're also going to have a full dedicated live stream, live demo where I'm going to go into the UEFI, show you more new options and stuff like that. But I just, as a little end push, I want to touch on this, and I don't want to spend too much time because I already had the full dedicated overview that we released on the channel. But all of the new motherboards have that 64 megabyte ROM. They all are going to have that new HD UEFI interface. They're all going to have that pre-injected Wi-Fi driver. They all still keep that class-leading 8-point fan control technology. But they're, for the new motherboards have that really cool new quick AIO technology design, which I showed you at the very beginning of the stream for the new AIO cooler. But again, if we just go here to the Glacial, you can just see how stunning this board is. It looks absolutely fantastic. It's, of course, got right angle connectors. So it takes me a second here. Let me find the connector so I can light this guy up here. I think there should be enough power to light the display up. So let me see. Will it light up? Is it gonna, oh, look at that. Look at that big, beautiful display, right? I mean, absolutely looks stunning. And one cool thing is, industry first on our models, like so the Glacial as well as the Dark Hero, these models actually have a 3D vapor chamber, primary Gen 5 M.2 SSD heatsink. I love here on the Glacial this transparent base design that looks so cool for that 3D vapor chamber heatsink. There's actually also a really cool magnetic design that we actually have for this section right here, where this pops off and there actually be an included magnetic fan. It's color matched in white to be able to provide more airflow to your high-speed DDR5 based memory if you're going to be running overclocking, because you might not be aware that with higher frequency memory, especially non-binary at higher voltages, to be able to maintain stability, you actually need to be able to correctly cool the memory. There's actually some cool designs here that we have as far as like these magnetic cover plates. So this actually comes with this magnet plate, and the magnet plate actually lifts off, and then the board still looks stunning, but now you actually see that you have that open PCI Express graphics card slot, and then you have this really cool embossed, I think it's called the magnet plate, the RG magnet plate, and you'll actually get a little stand that will come included so you can keep this on your desk to let everybody know that you got the best of the best. You got the Glacial motherboard, right? But you can see we have these cool kind of quick latch designs. This is actually on all of the ROG motherboards for this gen. They all have primary and secondary quick latch, so you can quickly quick latch it. You can see that beautiful, clean, bold, and bright white PCB design. Even the heatsink, it still looks great, even when you remove all of that off, right? Which is really, really slick. And something that I also really love at the bottom of the motherboard is you notice you don't see any of those bottom connectors. And one of the really cool things that we actually did is we hid all those connectors, because down there at the bottom, we actually have another magnetic plate. So that magnetic plate actually covers all of that. And there's just a little bit of lifted space. So you can still have all the front cable connections, triple USB 2, your SATA ports, or PCI alteration mode switch, your dual BIOS, an accessible CMOS battery, all of those things on there. And then when you're done, hey, I just put that little cover plate back on there and I can hide all the cables. It just looks absolutely, I think, stunning. This is, of course, going to be the absolute flagship. This is the best of the best. This is the cream of the crop, along with the Dark Hero and the Apex and the Extreme. Those are our best boards, right? ROG Crosshair series are always about setting the bar and the benchmark for quality, innovation, performance, and feature set. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of show you guys a little bit of this. You guys can see a lot more. I cover more in depth all the cool stuff that we have for the new motherboard lineup if you guys check out the first look preview that we already have up on the YouTube channel. And again, we'll have a dedicated live stream, which goes into covering more of that. And we'll do a live demo, go into the UEFI and more stuff like that coming a little bit later. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure to go ahead and be subscribed to the channel. Watch out for community updates on our social feeds, or if you're also part of the ASUS PCDIY community, we'll let you know, guys, there that it actually comes in. So let me quickly see if anybody did actually drop any of those questions that came up there while I was going that. So thanks for the stream and have a great weekend. Fantastic, man. You guys overall. Did anybody ask about the price for the Kronox? So we don't actually have a finalized price for the Kronox, but I would estimate right now, I think we're thinking probably around $399. That would include the LCD display. There won't be any fans in that, right? I think actually, if you take a look at all the features for that chassis, actually, I think $399 is quite reasonable. But please do not hold to that price. There could be some potential changes. That's just a price projection estimate. So just watch out for finalized confirmation on that. But that's if you're looking for a rough estimate, I would probably say around that price band. Okay. Let me see right there is love the board and the Kronox chassis. I think you mean Kronox, not Kronos, right? And the new BIOS, looking forward to get my hands on it. Definitely fantastic, man. Still loving my 48 Super that looks just like the one in your case. I agree, man. That design that we had for the 40 series absolutely looks really, really cool. Oh, yes. The BIOS looks nice. Yeah, the BIOS is really, really cool. It's actually really nice and clean. It looks even sharper than the prior generation. And we still have all those really cool things like the Q dashboard, that whole visual system that shows you every slot and port that's being used on there. So again, we're going to do actually, I'm going to probably have an updated guide tutorial like I did in the past, just for the new UEFI BIOS. So anybody that has anyone in new boards, I'll kind of walk you through how to use every single feature, how it's laid out, and you can kind of get all the kind of layout benefits and everything along those lines. But really excited about seeing that be introduced, right? So let me see right there. All for AMD. Yeah, so the main thing you have to consider is that part of some of these updates are based that all of the new motherboards have a 64 megabyte ROM file. So we may not be able to go backwards. So normally, if we can, we try to actually reintroduce anything that we do, and we do backporting. But there's also sometimes restrictions on keeping space for what's called microcode refresh or security updates that we have to reserve space for. But that's part of the reason why on the new boards we can do some of these new things, is because we have more space. There's double the amount of ROM space, right? 64 megabytes versus in the prior generation, it was 32 megabytes. Yes, does it come with a backplate? Yes, that's pretty much a hallmark. All of the high-end boards have a backplate. So the Dark Hero has a backplate. The Glacial has an absolutely stunning backplate. And yeah, so there is a backplate on there you have on the board. Does the Glacial come included with the RAM? Yeah. So actually, I can show you that here. Give me 1 second. I'll show you that. I don't have a problem. We went a little bit over, but it's not going to make a difference in terms of the time here. Give me a second, and I can show you. So actually, I think I might even have the picture here for. I might even be able to show you the little the cool design that we have for the magnetic fan. Give me 1 second. Maybe I have do I have the video file here? I think I might have the video file. Yeah, so this is actually, yeah, here you guys can see. So this is the cool little adapter. Check this guys out. So you can actually see it comes included. This will be inside the box, and you can see you just clip it on there, and then bam, really slick, really easy, and really nice. It's matched, right? So it goes kind of perfectly with the cooler. It's a really nice attention to detail. So that actually comes included again there. So I'll just kind of show you again that. Just pop that off, and you put it on there, and you're good to go, and it looks really nice. You'll also see that really cool new latching mechanism. It's actually a brand new latching mechanism for the primary slot and the secondary slot, and then the middle is a lock to keep them both in. And we also have the brand new DIMM.2 and the Hyper M.2 add-in cards. And for those Hyper M.2 add-in cards, they are all color matched, so they're beautiful. They're silver and white. They go perfectly with the Glacial board. So let me go ahead and bring it up to you here, and I can show you. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, so you can actually see right here. So here's the board, right? There you can see it without that, right? Without the cover plates in place, right? So you can quickly pop off those cover plates, right? And again, the cover plates, if I didn't show you, the top one also is remove. It's quick access to be able to let you, I'll show you the top one removing. Again, it's all about just making it really clean and refined in terms of the design aesthetic, right? But here you can see the rear connectivity. This is also dual 10G. It's the first time we've offered dual 10G, so that's awesome in terms of the specs. So dual 10G, and then USB-C, 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 USB-C. So 6 USB ports, dual 10G, and then the rest are all high-speed 10G ports. That's just absolutely insane. And then here you can see the beautiful new design. This is actually a really cool swing open design, really easy to be able to add in the two M.2 SSDs in there. Those will be two PCI Express Gen 4 M.2 SSDs in there. Toolless design, really simple, really easy. And then you also have a matching PCIe Gen 5 2 Hyper M.2 add-in card that will give you two PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 SSDs. So the board in total has support for up to 7 M.2 SSDs, and this would go in that second PCIe slot that's on the bottom, right, where the primary one would be for your graphics card. But you can see they look really, really stunning in terms of their overall design. You can even see, like here, look, we have that beautiful quick access design. So same thing, even that cover plate is toolless. You just click the button, open it up, and that opens to quick install your M.2 SSDs. Really nice, really simple. And you can see here, this is that new kind of, it's like a swing open kind of design, really simple to be able to click that open up the heat sinks, pop in the M.2s, then you put it back in, lock it into place. So again, everything is super simple and refined in terms of the overall feature set. But again, you know, this is a super premium like experience with a Glacial, again, just like an Extreme or like a Dark Hero product, right? Which again, you can watch the first look preview, but even the Dark Hero, now it's 10G and 5G connectivity. It's the first time we've ever offered 10G connectivity on the Hero. So really, really nice. Yeah, so quad channel, I mean, quad channel technically is a memory specification support. If we talk about high density configurations, if you want to talk about 2 SBC to 2 DPC, so if you want to be able to run essentially the most complex memory density configurations, all of the new boards have actually a new server grade PCB, on the ROG side, that's even further enhanced to be able to optimize that. We also introduced NitroPath on more ROG models down to actually the Dash A model. So we have even improved the high density memory configuration support if you're going to be running that. I mean, for gaming purposes, most users are going to be running 48 to 64, but if you want to get crazy and you want to run 128 or 256, it's going to be doable. You can run them. Of course, there's still always going to be a scaling difference compared to running one SPC, one DPC based configurations, but you know, still really nice to be able to see that, right? Yeah, so no lane sharing. We have optimized kind of the layout designs. You're always going to get the least amount of lane sharing on an X870E board because then you have dual chipsets. And the way that we kind of wired things is pretty much for the vast majority of the boards, the way that they're lined up and we set things up is essentially that you can use the primary by 16, you can use two PCI Express Gen 5 M.2 SSDs and not have any lane sharing. The only time that would change is then if you also want to utilize the 40 gigabit at the same time. And in that scenario, then there's actually a toggle that you have in the UEFI that the toggle could either be enabled or disabled. But if you're not going to use that configuration, yes, you could still be in the scenario where essentially on all these new boards, we've rewired kind of the lane configuration to even add more Gen 5 support and reduce the lane sharing configuration, or essentially have that option to mitigate that, right? Versus with the 40 gigabit connection. So yes, you can have primary PCI Gen 5, secondary Gen 5, and the by 16 all active. The only one that would kind of introduce essentially the wrinkle would be if you would want to then simultaneously use the 40 gigabit. All right. So yeah, anyway, hopefully that covers that. Again, if you guys have more things, feel free to check out the first look preview stream that we have for the X870 based motherboards, and that will get you guys covered. And then again, watch out for the upcoming stream that we'll have which gets you covered on that side. So thank you guys so much. Have a fantastic Friday. Have a happy New Year's. You guys have a good Saturday and Sunday. Take care, take it easy. And I hope to see you guys in the PCDIY community. So if you guys are not, check out the description. Description should be there to be able to go ahead and join our PCDIY community. I don't know if I have, let me see if I have I think a QR code. Yeah. So you guys can, if you guys haven't joined, there's a little QR code that you guys can see right there. That's for our PCDIY Heartbeat community. Great space that you can occasionally find me. I'll probably be more present this year within that space. If not, you'll definitely see Lee, our community manager, to be able to get all the latest great updates. He usually does posts going into our show. So if you also have questions or follow-up, you can definitely ask there. I try to follow up on any questions that might be posted directly on the comment section for the video on the YouTube channel as well. So with that, guys, take care, take it easy. Best of luck with your builds, and thanks for watching the stream. Bye-bye.